A volcano is going to blow up right where we are sitting.
So, imagine what will happen to Russia or America right now.
Everyone is doomed.
Mother of the Creator.
You can perceive all sorts of alien worlds and alien beings. Like,
I return to this body with even more horror because my consciousness is still, like that.
when I went to sleep, I started dreaming, and in that dream, I lived a year. And when you let go of your tendencies, when you say, yes, it's clear to me that I don't need to go there, then you no longer need the illness, it goes away. These are the basic states that open the way for you to any goal you set for yourself.
About the search for truth. This is definitely my favorite.
Not searching, but defining. It's pointless to search for it.
All right, let's try to define it right now. Let's do it. The question that really concerns me, again, there are many different concepts, opinions, whatever you want to call it. I want you to share your vision of what's happening, what truth you've chosen, who we are. Here I am. A person is in a physical human body, and then there's also this spirit or soul, which has its own opinion on this matter. There are different views and distinctions. Can you share yours? Starting from me, like how I am someone in this body, yes, then I have a spirit or soul. As you would say, what could be the difference, whether we have a single God or not? Let's create this map of reality.
Then we need to start from the moment of the very birth of reality and move in very big steps. First, we can take nothing as a starting point. But this nothing is like dark matter, dark energy. Physicists are chasing it, quantum physicists, and they still can't detect it with their instruments. But at the same time, they see that there is something that has an impact on our world, but for now, our world doesn't exist yet. There is simply something. From this something emerged, was brought forth, formed, came out. Something manifested. So something that already has the perception of itself, and this something is the self-perceiving consciousness. It's called Ardhanarishvara, although quite often. This something is originally called Toshi. And so, to avoid getting confused with the Sanskrit names, although, well, they can call it that. The original Brahman, for example. There are many different names. Shiva has 1,000 names, so it's easy to get confused. I'm just saying that originally something appeared, which is called originally this something. The beginning of the process of self-awareness, without getting into philosophy or religion, she split, united, and enjoyed it. And so, when this action took place and when this bliss happened, this original one scattered in all directions, the energies of the waves began to form all sorts of fractal structures, fractal self-similarity, constantly self-replicating. We have the first absolute nothing. The second, something came out of it called Shiva, this linga of his. So everything is the same, it's all about one thing. There's something split into Shiva and Shakti, meaning linear movements of energy and vortex-like movements of energy. Yeah, it somehow relates to the masculine and feminine. You can't really mark it as just masculine or feminine. It's just something that can be pulled into the masculine and feminine. Because we have two genders here. I'm not saying, but it's all much deeper and much more expansive. This two vectors of energy movement, one vector goes towards connection and returning to the original chaos. And the other vector of energy, on the contrary, pulls you out of the original and continues this game.
The opposite is like that. They have some names. We can also label them for better understanding. And out came Shiva and Shakti. So Shiva has already split again?
It's just that we start to get confused because of the terms that is the original, the process of self-awareness began. But it contains energies that complete this process and ignite it. These are the energies that ignite the process of self-discovery, that create, that fill with forms, that generate all sorts of variations, that kick off dances, games, cartoons, however you want. These Shakti energies, they're all wild, they're all whirlwinds. And Shiva is the same energies, but they no longer spin. How to put it? They reduce the amplitude of their movement, lower it, and then they turn back into linear movements. Linear movements lead back to the original state. The original state is when it was immersed. So on one hand it spins, but on the other hand, it still continues to return back. It all happens at once.
Okay, here we have two. Who comes after them? Shiva minds.
And so when all this was spilled out naturally, and all this began to form, another life that was limited in the perception of primal causes. For example, my finger doesn't have eyes, but it is still a part of my body. It is limited in its capacity for perception. And the head, it has the broadest spectrum of perception. It's the same here. There is an original being that has the maximum spectrum of perception, and there are all its various variations. And when this original energy started to twist, to coil, to form into some structures, shapes, and all that, the form's capacity for perception diminished to such an extent that the form stopped being aware of its unity with the original. Even though this unity hasn't gone anywhere, it is still all one. And here we are in our physical body. This form, originally in a state of being spilled into all sorts of forms, is referred to as Vishnu. Vishnu, what is Vishnu? This is the very original one that scattered into a huge number of...
This chaos from which everything manifested later.
Everything that is manifested. Let's imagine that in my hand, ball of water, and we are in space. It's easy to imagine a little ball of water in space. So I take this ball of water and it is whole. This is the original. And then this little ball goes pop and it bursts, scattering in all directions. This is a cherry.
These are all lots and lots of little balls.
This is the state of the cherry when it initially shattered into a bunch of shapes. So it's the same but in a different state. And so when it scattered into this bunch of forms, many little droplets appeared. And each droplet is a tiny world.
Wait, let me go back for a moment. Chaos. I really want the scheme. Chaos. Let's go down. Well, conditionally below. I understand that this is not a vertical line, just out of chaos. Something manifested appeared, which we designated as Shiva, and then it split into Shiva and Shakti, these two energies. Then they merge back into Vishnu, it turns out. There we go. Great. They merge into Vishnu. Vishnu is already made up of many, many droplets. And each droplet is a different little world. Well, it's very conditional, but there's a small nuance.
When they merged, there was an orgasm, a burst of energy. This state of orgasm is Vishnu. Let's put it this way to make it simpler. And in this orgasmic ecstasy...
Next, many say this huge number of worlds appeared. Yes, yes, yes.
A huge number of structural forms of all sorts of variations have appeared, all sorts of more primitive manifestations of this original one, and one of them is ours, if I understand correctly. But if we go by hierarchy, there is Vishnu. You know, when you see these processes, you try to perceive them, at least in some way, as a picture. It looks like an infinitely huge bush. Such an infinitely huge bush, a plant, on which little tomatoes are hanging. And each little tomato is a complete and finished universe. And this little tomato is Brahma.
A new concept, right, in our system.
We are simplifying. So on Vishnu, on his body, Vishnu is this bush with these little tomatoes, and each little tomato is already Brahma. So this is a specific creator of his own universe. And within his own universe, each Brahma creates whatever he sees fit. And we are the result of creation, this Brahma. But we also call him Brahma. But in pronunciation, the H is not pronounced. I don't know how correct or incorrect that is.
The bearer of the language is okay in terms of pronunciation. I want to get closer to us. So you say we are the creation, we are his creation, right? Who are we? Is it the planet Earth or something else? Or some other planets?
Listen, that's quite a complex question you have there. Because when I was, as an astral traveler, and I was one since I was 12 years old, I never managed to evenly distance myself from the Earth in my astral body. So I was distancing myself from the physical, I was moving away from home, I was rising into the sky, I tried to move further, and I would find myself back in my body again. So, in my astral body, I couldn't fly away from the Earth at all. At the same time, I could teleport, losing that linearity in an absolutely crazy moment.
But everything is on Earth.
Who knows, right? When you teleported, how do you know where you are?
Well, as far as I know, our astral body, just like the physical one and many others, is all tied to the Earth in general.
Maybe it doesn't exist.
Different planets that are being talked about now, like the Arcturians, Syrians, Lyrians, and some of our guides' assistants, the curators of our Earth. There's a huge amount of it too, a whole world. Does all of this fit into your vision?
You know, in my world, it's all nonsense. But at the same time, I can explain what people perceive as they move in that direction.
What do they perceive?
A person is a stream that permeates the entire universe. We have such a structure. So if you free your consciousness from the senses of the physical body, that is, you no longer use your eyes, you don't use your ears. Your body is sleeping at that moment, and if you connect it to a device, it will say the body is asleep. He doesn't even dream. Everything will be turned off in the shutdown, but your consciousness can be released at that moment. And so through the stream you can travel, rise up or go down. And so rising up, I fully admit that it is possible to perceive some kind of all kinds of alien worlds and alien bodies and all sorts of some variations. Civilizations, technocratic, natural and all that stuff. There is infinity. There's an endless number of these cartoons. They are constantly being generated. As you go down, you'll perceive denser, richer, more rigid kinds of spaces. We practiced a bit. I was with one of the practitioners and she asked, "So what's it like down there?" I said, "Well, let's go, let's take a look." So we were going down, 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 and eventually we reached a world that looked like an absolutely water surface, a water space where you, or as a person, are manifested in the form of a ray-like body, some kind of shape. Just like our rays swim, that's how people swim there. So what is called a person, that very being, has a stream. So when a person climbs up to the higher worlds, mostly all these contactees are going up the stream. It's no wonder that they see themselves just in different manifestations and talk to themselves.
These worlds exist just as ours does. That's absolutely true, but it's not clear where. We're in space? Yes, 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 but they exist.
Of course, there is in my perception. Yeah, you can sit and talk about palm to palm, saying hello there, or at the knee. Well, I mean, you can study your body as much as you see fit, but why you do it and why you spend your time on it, that's another question.
Are you saying that those we might encounter in other worlds will be either lower or higher? That's also me, that's also you. Because of that structure of the stream, but I mean the very original one. So conditionally, Shiva to some extent. Why ask if I exist? Yes, the manifested avatar here is Alina. Is there some kind of difference between us and others? Look.
There's a spring, a river forms from it. This river can have 100 different channels. But if one channel flows into one sea, while another channel flows into the ocean altogether, and here you are standing where the sea is, and I'm standing where the ocean is, for example, and we ask ourselves a question, are we one or are we different? Here where we stand, we are absolutely different. But where we originated from, we are one. How much can you free your consciousness, pierce through space to the source? That's how much you are aware of yourself. So, when a person moves through the stream, sometimes he doesn't even recognize himself. The limitation of perception makes us believe that besides our physical body, there's some aura, but we have nothing else.
Well, that's the reality, like that.
Yes. It doesn't negate the fact that it's not like that. So it's not like that. But you don't see that. When you start to see this, you can describe it and explain it to yourself. God knows how.
Let's wrap up. Yeah, our topic. Why did I even ask? We drew a diagram, right? And we finished at the point where the little tomato is, which represents our universe, right? Where does the division into different souls or spirits go from there? This is you and me, right on these riverbeds.
Yes, there is Brahma, he is the source. From it, little strands descend like hairs from a beard that penetrate the entire universe, from its very top to its very bottom. So this little tomato, these kinds of veins penetrate it. So each of these little strands is a person. One, but this person has multiple physical bodies.
How many is a lot?
Yes, it can reach into the tens, hundreds, or even thousands. And all these bodies are doing something.
So there is me right now, and there are also, let's say, 10 of my other bodies on this earth.
Basically, in one point in space, there are about 4 bodies.
So 4 bodies on Earth?
Well, plus or minus.
Are they in the same point in space and time as me?
Yes, you can greet that person. I found a person from my stream and even lived with that person for a while and practiced with them.
Is this what some people call twin flames?
I've heard about this term, but I haven't really dug into its essence. Maybe yes, maybe no. Someone has already asked me this question, but I still haven't looked into it.
Okay, but where are the others? So there are 4 of us on Earth, roughly speaking, 4 of me on Earth in different bodies. Where are the rest of my dozens of bodies?
Scattered somewhere around. The little tomato, yes, and it's definitely not, what is it called? Humanoid bodies. There can be different bodies there.
So, look, what you were saying about the rays that are down there somewhere, are there.
These are not our rays that swim.
Of course, I understood. I mean, I thought that the disco tatok is already a separate little tomato. No, it's all about that. What a burrow. We just have different roads, like dimensions.
Yes, you could say that. You could say different layers, different densities, however you want, but it's no longer on Earth.
She's like, I'll try it in hours.
So, if you could get there linearly, then you understand where you're moving, how you end up there. Like when you're moving, I don't know, like a train in the subway through a tunnel. So, what and where is this relative to where I was? It gets complicated. But in the Vedic text, the egg of the universe is described as the Mount Meru, with different lands around it. So there is some description there, but again, without visions, without extrasensory perception, you still can't fit it all in your head. Into your head, it just doesn't fit. And if you start traveling through all of this yourself, it's endless. So a lifetime wouldn't be enough to study all this structure if you're reading from the Akashic records, where all the information is stored.
And where is this? That's also a trendy, interesting topic, by the way. The Akashic records, where is it located in space? Is this our little tomato, at least?
Yes, of course.
Somewhere, higher or lower in some dimension.
You could say that there is a certain layer, an informational layer, where absolutely all the information that has come from any conscious being is stored.
So even the rays, the ones that are there.
And those that are there and those that swim with us. All information is accumulated in the Akashic records in this space. Moreover, it manifests both around a person and around the planet, as well as around our Creator.
Look, the angels, that many talk about, they're also in our little tomato. Just somewhere higher, I understand, in a different dimension.
Yeah, well, 1 floor up.
Not too far up, just 1 floor up, through one guide, you know? That concept of someone who helps.
It's just that we as humans have this term primordial teachers. I think it's even higher. It's even beyond that.
They, whoever they are, how they manifest, and why they are our guides, are considered to be helping us, our primordial teachers. So why do we need to learn from them? To put it simply, why do they need to teach us?
Because at least in our era, the Kali Yuga, if a person does nothing, they just roll along. From one day, on another day, he immediately starts the process of degradation and crystallization of his consciousness. And accordingly, if there is not the slightest to not do this, that is, there is no example to follow, no source of knowledge, no master, representative, instructor, or anyone of some kind of knowledge, master, representative, instructor, anyone. If there was someone to take an example from, then all of humanity would quickly turn into a pile of ashes.
So these, as you said, the initial little hairs, they would, roughly speaking, have gone out. Am I understanding correctly? Yes.
They would fade away, fade away, fade away, and crystallize. But again, you can look at what happens to a green plant if you expose it to frost. Well, it will start to fade away. Every little branch will be just like that until it's completely destroyed. Everything turns to dust.
So this little tomato, which we call Brahma, right?
Yes.
It's not beneficial for him if we don't develop here, because little by little we start to fade away. Oh no, I'm no... and in the end, it could be like that little tomato.
No, look, it's beneficial for him to have balance.
What does balance mean?
That means we both die and develop at the same time. So some part goes to waste while some part gets realized.
Okay, then why can't someone degrade? Well, he degrades, but he also develops, and everything is in balance.
It's a matter of choice, free will. So if you want to develop here now with the original teacher, here are the teachings for you. If you don't want to develop, here are the passions, here are the temptations, here you go.
So in the end, there should be both those who are evolving and developing and those who are degrading.
There should be characters in this game. These characters must have free will. Otherwise, there won't be a game.
Whose game is this, anyway?
Of all that is manifested. So, the original being knows itself through an infinite number of games. He has no one else to know. He's alone. You see, just imagine a situation you find yourself in absolute emptiness. That doesn't even have color. What are you going to do?
That's the one who is chaos or who came out of chaos.
The one who came out of chaos, Shiva, is the one who can be aware. That's who has truly manifested. In some form, let's say a lingam, he's bored, of course, he's bored, he's trying to understand them, so he looks at himself. Here, absolute identity doesn't even want anything, because it's absolute identity. Well, at least you have a female body and I have a male one. We can already somehow connect and want to be interested in each other. Can you imagine if you were 100%? You look like me, you see me, and I'm just the same, absolutely identical. Would you even have the slightest interest in that? Probably not. Because you look at yourself and you know everything about yourself. You look at me and I'm absolutely the same. Here, Shiva is originally in a state where everything is identical. And there is no passion, there is no need, there is no desire, there is no striving, whatever you may be. And he solved this problem very simply. He took himself and split into two parts. And so when he connected...
It's all in many, many, many parts.
Yes. When he connected, it all exploded. So to some extent, physicists are right when they say that the universe came from a big bang, although this is not the correct translation, but that is not the point now.
All right, look, if everything is this Shiva who is knowing himself, why do these teachers, the higher teachers, want to convey something to us so that we evolve? Whatever we do, including degradation and everything else, it's just Shiva knowing himself. Well, it seems a bit contradictory to me. Why? Well, because on one hand, we need to develop to evolve, and so there are some higher teachers who help us.
How do we let us evolve?
That's good too.
The initial state, it's so boring. It's all cartoons. All these games of development, all these games of... Knowledge is all the endless number of cartoons that you can either watch or not watch. If you refuse to watch them, it means you're taking actions and practices that allow you to break free from these cartoons. If you enjoy watching all of this, if you like it, then you'll be aggressive towards those people who try to pull you out of these cartoons. You'll say, no, I'm playing, I'm fine with everything. Try to pull a child away from, for example, an online game that they like. He will show you aggression. You'll say, I don't need your real world, I don't want it. This computer world is just a semblance, a fractal of what's happening to us. And there are people who want to play in this world. And it's not about esotericism at all. There's no need for that, and there are plenty of passions, interests, and pleasures. Even for some, suffering is a pleasure. You tell a person, for example, look, you're suffering, you can do this and that, and you'll stop suffering. He's probably not going to do it because he's really into it.
But that's okay, right?
It's multifaceted, it's multivariant. And so there's a variation where there are primary teachers, there are people in the form of streams, and all of this somehow dances. It's just a variation. Brahma, Avamala Brahma, thousands, hundreds of thousands.
People like him create some kind of universe.
Yeah, and in each universe, there's its own quirks, its own rules. Here we have primary teachers who give us something. They say that they might not even exist, like we have Brahma, and it's said that, for example, he had 4 heads but lost 1.
It's all like myths. Or what is the basis for the idea that he has 4 heads? Where does the head even come from?
But most likely, these are some qualities that are present in him, meaning his abilities, his capacities. There are thousands of heads of Brahma, so there are qualities, wagons, carts, whatever worlds they have invented for themselves.
So the heads are like a metaphor. Some qualities, aspects, right?
Yeah. Well, look, just like you have facial expressions. This facial expression reflects your emotional state, for example. So they also have heads that reflect their ability to enter different states, to manifest various forms. That's how I can explain it.
What are the 4 qualities of ours?
You'll know them well.
They are unknown, full of mysteries.
I had a short conversation with Brahma when we practiced the contact with him. You come in, and he's really intense, but I'm exaggerating, of course. I get it. You just feel the attention of this incredible madness. In terms of manifestations related to you, consciousness, you just feel the attention on yourself naturally. There, with a questioning tone, attention, what did you come for? It's like watching cartoons. What are you saying? I tell him, I can't say it better. What I want is freedom. I want to break free. From here, our conversation was ending.
Didn't respond.
Let's say I'm not getting instructions from him on how to get out.
So can we say that he doesn't want you to leave the cartoons, perhaps?
He's not interested in that. If we talk about it again, exaggerating and simplifying the conversation, his position is that if you're planning to bail, then just bail. So how can I not notice you, and how can you not interfere with me continuing to create the world and not disturb the balance? So quietly, calmly, only if not in general. He's not against spitting in it, of course. But if I start disturbing his sleep and interfering with him resting, dragging everyone along with me, even those who don't really want to, of course, he will be unhappy.
So basically, you would become a threat to what he has created, to his world.
Yeah, I will never be a threat to him. Well, look,
Why would he be unhappy? That's so.
a mosquito flies in, starts buzzing over you. So, does he pose a threat to you? Yeah, he doesn't pose any threat to you. He's just annoying you. It's the same thing. You become a mosquito buzzing around his sleep, and that annoys him.
All right, can he do something in that case?
Of course he can. He doesn't just have the ability, he does it. And he does this with those practices that get carried away with their abilities, get caught up in their pride, and then get hit on the head by him, so they don't interfere with sleep, with the cartoon, with playing around. At the same time, if a person goes beyond all these forms and reaches a state where they are close to the original manifestation, there, you get it very clearly. The realization that you can do whatever you want. So, if you think that everything that's been done is somehow wrong, do what you believe is right. No one is holding you back from anything. You will just create another vortex or scenario or the egg of the universe. So you'll just be another creator who appears and disappears. They emerge from Vishnu, then Mahakal comes, which is a form of Shiva, and actually devours them, which means it consumes itself within itself. Everything moves like this, spins and turns. That is, one form goes into another form from this form. All of this results in a third form, and there it is discovering itself. This is an endless process, and that's exactly what I wanted to ask about.
In my practices, I often find myself at a level where I simply meditate at some point. I start to feel like I am everything that I am, absolutely everything here. There's nothing at all except for me, and I am the bench, the grass, anything. All of this is me, and I'm curious why I understood this. It's somehow closer to Shiva. That's the level we're talking about. Well, or at least Brahma. It's hard to say for sure, but the thoughts are right. Why do I skip the level where I am spirit and you are spirit? We have different streams, some with you, and there are some angels as well. Or why do I pass through these levels without noticing them, going straight to where I am, everything? And why has this been taking me so long?
As that's where you're aiming.
Yeah,
it seems so. If you weren't aiming for it, you wouldn't end up there. Yes. The factor that determines where your consciousness will move in all of this. This factor is called intention. Maybe only sincerely, only the truth. You can shake the air, whatever you have there. It's interesting. What's there for you?
And I believe that it's very interesting what's behind the rays, what kind of angels are there, and who sees them.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. But in the moment, when a window opens, an opportunity opens up, and your intention will still work. You know, it's like you can sit there completely immersed, meditating and looking at everyone like this, with wide eyes, until someone comes and says, "Hey, you idiot." Dude, kick yourself in the ass, and then what's inside you will kick in. They are real. In the way you draw them, depending on what state you're in, that's what's real. Here, you just slap, and again, you'll take that position. You can't be knocked out of that position. If yours are real, it will burst out. And so, when we're not in those states, we shake the air, reflect, philosophize, and have conversations. We can come up with a bunch of things that seem important to us. But what is truly important will emerge right at the moment when a window of opportunity opens. And nothing else.
So all of this is the mind. You could say, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. I want to read books kataf, to study those that are from another world. This is all the mind, but not my sincere intention.
Well, look, let me draw an analogy. That will probably clarify things for you better. So you definitely want to buy all sorts of different things, items, and you might even want to attend some event. So you have some idea of what you would spend money on, but you don't have that money for now. You only have an idea about it. And you can even look at magazines, catalogs there. And then out of the blue, let's say I pull out some cash and say, look, here you go. And here a window of opportunity opens up. And here you'll spend on what truly matters to you, not on what you've just imagined for yourself.
Interesting. This can also be related to the fact that when people win the lottery or something like that happens, in most cases, people just waste that money on nothing, on food, on some everyday mundane things. Is this also about that?
They implement their whims as long as it lasts for them, most likely, yes. At that moment, they are genuine. If a person has spent their whole life thinking that they are going to save the world, but they just don't have the money, then the money appears and probably he won't be saving the world.
Listen, well, it's interesting. Are they really genuine at that moment when they go to pay off their credit or to eat at a restaurant with that money or something else?
Yes, they are genuine.
But is there really nothing else in them besides the desire to go to that restaurant?
Yes, but they can't do all of that at the same time. Mouse, stuck in a timeline, and you can talk to me at the same time, go take a nap. It's also quite nice to go out to eat. That's pretty cool, right? It's not about doing it in a sequence.
I mean, is it really their soul's desire, so to speak? The soul can't have material desires at all.
The soul is an abstract term, and intentions, you're pieces of this huge mechanism. It's when it initially broke down into all sorts of forms and structures, its possibilities were limited. So each subsequent iteration, it's another and another, and an even greater narrowing of possibilities. When your possibilities are just tiny little things. From that state, there's a lot of things that you're not aware of, and you naturally start to strive for it. You naturally want to interact with this. It can be anything, from an object to just a thought, some idea in your head. And gradually, systematically, you do this. You accomplish. And so, for example, a person might spend their whole life pursuing their passions. And let's say by the age of 70, to say, I lost the meaning of everything. That's happening. And maybe a person, I don't know, years, sit in meditation for 5 years, enter that state, come back from that state and say, well, there's no meaning in anything. They will have the same result. One goes through the realization of passions, while the other goes through drilling, exploring with their consciousness. Well, if you manage to drill down, this well is called bindu. In fact, to the state where you truly realize yourself as everything, but it's like, that's true, but then your consciousness, for some reasons, brings you back here again, which means there's still a strong attraction here. Well, what's stopping you from staying in that state?
What am I supposed to do there?
Oh, that's exactly the question I asked myself on my last journey. Which was 6 months ago, when I threw away some of my concepts again. And here it is. Where did it all come from and what was I throwing away? I had an acquaintance who didn't practice with me. Well, maybe once or twice, just for fun, in which there was its own path, its own movement, its own practices, its own techniques. And we were talking, and he says, hey, Anton, he says, I'm an oracle. I got it. Well, for me, Adhikalia was something invisible, something imperceptible, something absolutely primordial, eternal, incomprehensible, just something that you can't even touch. And here sits a person and says, I am an oracle. I'm like, well, okay.
Where is it in our structure?
Where? It's not there.
What is it?
That's where the all came from.
But chaos, why? We have a structure there at the beginning. Chaos. From it came the all.
You see, to touch this structure of the manifested is to seize your own manifestation. And again, diving into your bindu, moving, without agreeing to any form. So there, beauty opens up to you. All of this reveals itself, but you don't agree. You say, no, I want to go deeper. I want to get to the very root of everything. And at some point, I flew to the moment. I don't know where this is technically located. I reached that point where it opened up this possibility of perception, of the transcendent, hidden. And so when that hidden thing was looking at me, you still feel it. Like when this nothing is looking at you, you can't perceive that it's looking at you, but you feel that it's watching you, and there's no doubt about it. And you and I, in a sense, looking at this something, it became absolutely clear and unambiguous to me that this, the original chaos, which is called Adhikalia, and I are one and the same. I'm just in this form right now, and she hasn't changed her form at all. So it is in its true form, and that's it. But I came out of it, yes, through Shiva, Ardhanarishvara, Vishnu, Brahma, the flow, all of this stuff. But still, I and she are one and the same. And I'm like, come on, so I'm also Adhikalia. But not here and now, more like potentially. It's like every sperm cell, it's potentially a healthy and strong person. It's exactly the same here. On one hand, it seems like it's true, but on the other hand, well, it's kind of a truth.
Well, look, about the fact that the soul has no desires, yeah, you're saying... So if we accept this, yeah, as the truth, so that denies the concept that we are all here to embody something. You know, that's the purpose of your soul, but this is why we were all incarnated. If there's no meaning at all. Purpose, the task of the soul, all these stories that are very popular now too. Where do they fit into our system? What was the reason for you to embody there, and what about me? Conditionally.
To continue self-discovery from the very beginning, and to see all the various ways that he can manifest.
But it is somehow written down somewhere that specifically I was realized in this body for some specific task.
Listen, yeah, how can that be written if each of us has free will?
Free will?
Of course. Well, initially, look at how all of this looks. If we're going to speak in technical terms again, imagine a video game that has several different endings. Here are all these final endings. They are written out. But what you see depends on your choice. And it's the same when you manifest in a physical body. You have a clear script from beginning to end, and your soul sees the clear script of your moment of entry and the moment of dying.
All these branches, all of them. Come on, let's take one for now. Here's one that appeared, but you...
Confused by all sorts of astrological forecasts, divinations, and all that stuff. What the hell? I don't like this script. I don't want what was predicted for me. And then another scenario appears. So you expressed your will and said, no, this is unacceptable. Boom. You immediately progress them. Another scenario. You start moving along a different scenario. And every time you use your free will and manifest, not just making noise, well, of course, it's not enough to just say, I don't want that, but to actually manifest, to really put in the effort, you can create more and more of these scenarios, these spirals of time, maybe infinitely. They are created without any limit. They create the intention of our Brahma. That is, it draws them immediately as soon as you change your value system and your priorities. But they are immediately drawn all the way to the end. That's the trick.
I can change it to any point. Here it was addressed to the end. I went through half of it, like, no, I don't want to. Then I want it differently. Another one will go, but nevertheless, your sinful soul initially sees one specific branch. So my soul loads in here, let's put it that way. Well, let's say like in a game with a specific understanding, and everything that happens after that is no longer my soul's doing. And how I use my free will. With my intention, I say again, soul is an abstract term.
This is the system of connection with the original. This is the network, the fabric of the universe. This is the soul. The only question is how deeply you can comprehend it. So when I delved into my soul, I still had no idea about it. And upon seeing the first basic image, I thought, that's it, I've made it. And then over time, as I kept practicing, Ashan explained to me that I had achieved something there. It's just a form, some kind of the first base. And you can move inside this form. That is, look, let's say I see there, but in a very beautiful way. I don't know, maybe I have long hair, such absolutely white skin, and there's this light radiating from me. I'm sitting there all filled with it. Let's imagine Ashan says, well, you're sitting there, for example, but the one who is sitting there has a heart. There's hurt in the heart. Like, what the hell? And then someone says, who And it turns out that it's like two mirrors facing each other, creating this endless corridor. But at the same time, you can still see these sectors, yet it's an infinite tunnel. And when other practitioners were moving with me in these processes, they encountered all sorts of people. Some of us have seen Jesus Christ. Others have met a wise sage, an old man with a beard and all that. I say, guys, look into the heart of the one you found there. And when you move, by not agreeing to any form or any image, in the end, you will find yourself in the state of the original. And you will again move through the form of Brahma, through the form of Vishnu, through the form of Shiva, and ultimately the form Ardhanarishvara. But how far you can move there depends on how quickly you can let go of all the concepts that you are a form. And when you find yourself in that state, on one hand, there are no images at all, but on the other hand, you still see everything. It's an inexplicable process.
That's the example you gave, yeah, with the video game. Right now, there are a lot of practitioners who claim that we are, for example, in a simulation, that we are in a computer game, and that all of this, where we are right now, is partly an illusion. And when we leave here, we'll wake up somewhere else, in another space, in another body. So what do you think about that?
Well, that scenario is real, but not for everyone. This is one of the variations, again. And P2, for that variation to work, the question arises, what have you done to make it happen? If you haven't done anything, your scenario is quite sad. It spasms. And you find yourself in a space without the ability to perceive anything at all.
So after death, you die and find yourself nowhere.
Well, somewhere, but there, you are in a state of inability to perceive. But imagine that all your senses just got turned off right now. So it seems like you still exist.
But
there's no point in that.
Aren't we reincarnating? Are we here infinitely? Or, of course, how many times do you...
Would we be in a different era? I would probably say different things. But since we are in the Kali Yuga, for the most part, there won't be any reincarnation.
Why?
This is already Brahma. Why did it happen this way?
So this life that we are living right now in 2024, it's the only one we have. And after we die, we either, if we practice something, we'll find ourselves in another space or simply nowhere. Feeling nothing, right?
If we practice, then the immediate question is, what are we practicing? Depending on what we practice, that's where we will end up.
We will end up.
Because, for example, right now, as of today, in the multidimensionality has formed a space that, for example, is very much like paradise. Why? Because a lot of people have actively shaped it. So there really is such a space, and you can fly into it like a little cloud of consciousness and even enjoy it there for some time. But these are just more cartoons, and in essence, cartoons made by people.
Which also have some kind of end, it turns out. Or will they forever remain in this cartoon?
No. But what does forever even mean? No, it's... First of all, it depends on the skill of the person themselves. Look, for the physical body to live, it needs external resources. Air, food. There's more to it in detail. In order for your consciousness to continue the act of awareness, that is understanding, it needs to be nourished. So if you haven't trained yourself to nourish yourself, then at the moment of the physical body's death, you lose the connection to the flow. It's disconnecting. So you become, but from the camera, which has been unplugged from the power source. Yes, you have a battery there, but it will run out, and that's it. You can no longer perceive. And so when a person, he turns out to be this little cloud of consciousness. Next, if he is horrified by what has happened, if he doesn't understand what occurred, if in his concept, in his world, there was nothing even remotely similar to this, if he was an absolute materialist, then this little cloud turns into an absolute form of matter and drops like a weight to the bottom. There he can no longer perceive anything. It completely collapses. So you can't learn to be in the afterlife just by actually entering the afterlife. If you're preparing for this, then you need to prepare well in advance. Even Buddhists who actively promote reincarnation, this endless cycle, they prepare in advance for the afterlife. In Buddhism, there is a practice called Bihova. This is nothing more than preparation for the afterlife. So they say one thing, but act completely differently.
Listen, well, look, how many people indeed talk about their previous era? And some remember their past lives.
What? You don't know that this is about past lives? That this person explained it to you like that? But what if he was wrong?
Well, let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that these were past lives. But those people weren't practitioners. They were, I don't know, someone saw themselves as some kind of, I don't know, an emperor. Someone, on the contrary, a slave. Who, I don't know, carried water. They didn't practice anything, but they were reincarnated? Or do you think that doesn't exist?
Those people who talk about reincarnation, do they happen to say something like, time is also an illusion?
I don't know. You need to look at specific cases each time.
Well, you see, for me, mostly I encountered people who could fit both reincarnation and the idea that time is an illusion into one sentence. So how does that fit together?
I think it fits together because time, like space, if you take it...
Look, let's not complicate things again. We already have everything we need. You saw yourself as everything.
I did.
Technically, you can, while in this state, remember yourself as me. Because we are all one, we are all connected, and this reincarnation of mine that... So that's what I wanted to ask. So I just want to explain to you that you can remember being anyone, even Pushkin, even Lermontov, or whoever.
But that doesn't mean that these were specifically my incarnations, like how I am in this stream.
You are here and now. There are no other options for you, and depending on how you behave, the moment of contact with death will often be determined by how your consciousness fragments. And when you are connected to the flow, in that connection, you will lose yourself at the moment of contact with death. So this is the scariest thing, the thing that practitioners often overlook. As long as, shape, you are part of the flow, you can remember yourself as anyone. Even as Brahma himself or Shiva himself. It doesn't matter, you are part of this whole organism. You can remember yourself as your grandfather, your grandmother. It doesn't matter because everything is one. Yeah, for someone to remember, you need to go through this kind of segment, and for someone else to remember, you need to go back there. But technically it's possible. And you can remember yourself as your neighbor after all, and as your dog, because everything is one, everything is whole. It depends on the flexibility of your consciousness. But as soon as death touches you, you are removed from this stream. It separates you, and you find yourself in a state, it's called the Bordeaux space, where you are pure perception. And if you, as pure perception, have enough qualities within you to move forward.
Well, you'll be able to navigate there, so to speak, right?
Yes, to navigate, to set a direction, to see, to be aware. Well, you'll be great there. So, well, okay, I'm even willing to agree that you can make a decision.
And embody in it.
And to embody again, yes, but it will be purely your specific decision. Should I go and embody myself once more? Well, in most cases, it's panic, it's terrible. This is spasmia, you know? That state of paralysis when you're really scared and you can't do anything. But on the level of physics, we are familiar with this. And something like this can happen on the level of consciousness. But if physics doesn't compress from your paralysis into a point, then your consciousness will easily do that. What our consciousness is, but much more fluid, it is not tied to time. You're giving this impulse of fear, the thump, has closed everything. Your game is over. You're no longer a particle of consciousness that moves freely. You're a piece of spasm that has fallen into the first gates, into the lower part. So this egg of the universe at the bottom, in the ash pit, in the ash dump, you can call it whatever you want. And that's it, you're just lying there. Yes, and there are some incredible events that can pull you out of there, like when you blow into the ash pit, right? And the ash jumps up.
Blue.
Well, for example, we have practices there, aware of practical energy in the first one. It's shown that even a practicing person can blow there and raise this wave of particles and launch them for another one. Some kind of circle transformations, meaning to reverse their spasm so that they can relax and become receptive again.
It might somehow be related, you know, to praying for your relatives, right? Like all that stuff.
Technically, of course, there are rituals, but let's be honest, not all of these rituals are done honestly. Mostly, what I've seen in most cases, it was just a show. There was no real practice. But at the same time, I know that there are special rituals that allow not just everyone randomly, but specifically find that very particle you need and launch it back into the cycle of transformation. From the moment you pulled it out of there, started the cycle of transformation, to the moment it becomes aware and remembers all of this, it might never actually reach that point, but at least it will be traveling again somewhere, completely forgetting how it was a second ago, for example.
That's why I asked about this illusion, this game where we can die here and wake up in another body, let's say, because I had that kind of experience, and how can I put it? I fainted. And now I will tell you everything I saw and what other people saw. I learned about that only after I came back. So I fainted, and to put it bluntly, I started having an epileptic seizure. My whole body was shaking, my eyes rolled back, and the only thing missing was foam at the mouth. What did I see at that moment? I wake up in a small red room, as I remember it. I have a feeling that I'm sick with something, such an unpleasant, painful condition, but at the same time, I feel myself, I don't know how this can be taken, the size of tens of universes. That is, I had a sense of my body, and it was simply incredible, of some gigantic proportions. I was lying there, and I get up from the shock of waking up, as if on a bed. I sit up, and I start to remember what I dreamed about. That is, this life of mine that I'm talking about with you right now, like such utter nonsense. And I'm sitting there holding my head like this in shock in this red room. And I'm mentally telling myself like, oh my God, what nonsense, I'm dreaming, remembering my whole life. And somehow I lie back down, starting to process all of this, remembering the characters in my life, what I did there. And somehow I blink, and gradually stars in the sky start to appear. And I return to this body with even more horror, because my consciousness is still like there. I remember all of this. And I have this horror that, no, I'm back here again. Why not this? Oh my God, why? I start screaming. I see my friends who are trying to call an ambulance for me. I realize that these are the ones I saw from that dream. I think, damn it, that's how I felt. So what can you say about that?
I can tell my story about this. By the way, there are two stories. Two jokers from two sleeves. Getting the first. One is pretty straightforward, but I still won't mention it. When I went to sleep, I started dreaming. And in that dream, I lived a year. And the only thing that bothered me there was that there was some kind of strange water. I remember that the water wasn't like that. That's the only thing that kept me from fully accepting this world. And then, living this year, doing all sorts of variations of various actions, deeds, all of this, and every time sticking to the water, touching it was too dense. No, on the contrary, it was too thin. So I remembered that you could swim in the water, that it was wet, that it held you, and that's just terrible. He was sinking. I mean, he had no chance to swim at all. And at some point, I just opened my eyes. I perceived these two worlds simultaneously, and I'm like, oh. And the optics were like, well, okay, that happened too. The second option, Auto 2, the second joker from my sleeve, is more related to your topic. When I fell into my bind. When Dekoli was looking at me, I saw her gaze and felt her attention. I looked at her and realized that we were the same chaos. Yes, yes, yes. At that moment, I had every opportunity to connect with her. I really understood that now I was still making an impulse. I'm giving my consent, and that's it. I'm one with her. In that very moment, I realized that, yes, I could become one with her, and then what? Well, okay, I'll be in this form, and I'm making an impulse. Oh, Gurno, I haven't played enough yet. I mean, I had a different plan. No, not like that. I want to come to you differently. I want to come to you, and I'm starting to shift my attention back to that timeline where I can understand what state I'm in. There was a person nearby, but as far as I understand, I wasn't showing any signs here in this. Yes, in this reality. My body was just asleep, but it wasn't showing any signs. It was in a deep sleep. As far as I understand, it was a practice, or you just fell asleep. It was a practice. Of course, I'm shifting my attention to where my body is, where this scenario is unfolding, where I need to carry out the plan that I came up with for myself. I'm starting to move into it. I am pure perception. I have nothing, no body, no form. I am pure perception. And I see this spiral of time. I'm getting closer to it. I'm approaching that little piece where this event is happening right now. And before entering there, I'm like, whoa, 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 wait. I'm going to edit it a bit. And with my consciousness, it's not hands, there's nothing there. With my consciousness, I'm adjusting this timeline as there will be an even more future. And this isn't an adjustment of events, it's a balance of energy. So I said, I didn't say, I made the decision that in the next movements, yes, along this timeline, there will be more. The energies that are being pushed onto me from those energies that aren't being pushed will be less. Like these rompers, like on equalizer. That's how it is in music. And now I'm entering my body. I open my eyes like this. Well, let's keep going to realize our idea, even though all of this is absolutely alive, but it's completely within me. But absolutely, it's still like, like the back eyes are still open, the third eye still needs to be opened. It's still being perceived in parallel, but I can really see how it's fading. And my consciousness is narrowing, it's getting narrower. Basically, up to those skills that I already have permanently, which I don't need to force out of myself, here we go. Oh, now I'm going to dive into it. No, from which I already have access. And I am completely immersed in this state. The last bits are flying to me like informational ones.
It was the same, got it.
Yeah. I look into a person's eye and I really see how from that person's eye, there's this decal coming to me like, oh. And I'm like, oh. So in each eye of every person, there's this window through which they look, well, originally from the source. And all these chants that I occasionally say out loud, like Har Har Mahadev, they are alive for me. So is this my experience? That is, Har Har Mahadev is each of us. Mahadev. This is Shiva. That is, each of us is Shiva Om Devi. That is, this is Devi. This is the deity. This is what everyone, but, well, that's it. Here it is. So for me, this is my personal experience. And it was right after that event that I said, yeah, it turns out the girl was right when I waved my hand and said, what the hell are you talking about? Here. But for now, while I'm here, while I'm in this matter, the results of my practices, the flow, I'm not adhikaliya. I'm talking about multiple transformations, the kind that wants more, about transforming because it's enjoyable. That's why it draws you in, yeah, because there's something to do. And so when you realized all of this, felt it, touched it, before I really doubted my intention. I mean, I understood that it was almost impossible to realize. Well, it's totally unreal because it's very difficult. And after that event, I thought, yeah, what else is there to do here?
You mean your intention to connect with that original source, right? And you're already connected to it. Like, no, of course not.
It's the deepest foolishness of people who strive to connect with the original. They just need their own to expand their spectrum of awareness, and they'll see that it's true, that it's a given. That means no matter what you want, as an adult man, I want to be born from a woman. Yes, you were already born from a woman. No, that's what I want. So this sounds to me like connecting with the original state. Yes, I already am that original. It's just in such a form of crystallization that it's not obvious to me, but it's still like that. Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. I don't see the air, but I still breathe it.
Well, just look, in your experience, you're conscious back in this body. So I feel like I didn't have any consciousness at all. So I was thrown there where I was in another body. And it also threw me back here. And the place where I was, in whatever body I woke up in, was in horror that I was here again. So it didn't want to come here. And I have a question, what kind of body is there? Because it was some kind of objective one. So it's not a piece of energy, as someone says. There's some kind of... This brings me to the question about the game. About the game, maybe we fall asleep here, but die, roughly speaking, and wake up somewhere else. And there's also some kind of body like I had, or what is this space where I woke up and why I didn't want to come back here?
Well, who knows for sure?
It's unclear, right?
I can tell you this. Having been in those spaces, everything is there. Everything that can possibly be imagined is there. It's quite possible that you are the only being of this kind on this planet. And no one will explain to you what it is because it's only yours. And it's quite possible that there are many beings in such a situation. And they will tell you a little that I see this every night. All my dreams are about this.
I go into that body.
And here I am sitting and telling you about how I observed Odikalia. And Odikalia was looking at me And I know practitioners who completely agree with me on all of this. It's all cartoons. Cartoons only end when you stop being this form and enter the original state. But upon entering the original state, you will most likely say this.
I'm going back to the polisher.
What am I supposed to do here? I better go play again. There you go. And that's cool. You are no longer afraid. You are more... You don't worry. You just move forward, realizing your intention, fully understanding that in the grand scheme of things, nothing really has any meaning. You become free. This degree of freedom, which it unfolds within you, allowing you to be an absolutely happy person out of nothing. Actually, but if you don't see it, if you've just read it in a book, you won't really be able to talk about it properly. Because there are certain moments in practices that you've either experienced or still have yet to experience. And until you experience this, you won't be able to operate with it. It just won't work. You can't think it through. You can't model it. So when I found myself in one of those states, I couldn't control it. I was observing, it was flowing through my consciousness, it was overwhelming, it overloaded my entire perception. I was in pain, I was scared, I was both thrilled and terrified at the same time. No, I don't want to see anything, just leave it all, leave everything, I want everything. I understand everything, I just want my body back, and here it's just calm and clear. So my previous position, my last experience was getting here. Everything I needed to know, I wanted to see it with my own eyes, meaning I was already quite bold, confident in myself. And the more I practice, the more I engage in the actions that I've been taught and that I actually teach, the more natural it becomes for me to be in that state. In those spaces, and it's quite possible that you get there once, and then after some time you'll get there again, and you'll say, oh, this is all familiar to me. Yes.
There's less fear, more space for choice, freedom, as you said.
Yes, freedom. So you free up a spectrum of perception, and you are no longer limited by some with specialized reactions that only get in the way, and you react in a completely calm, harmonious way. Basically, you're not a victim of circumstances.
Yeah, like I said, I was carried there, and I thought, oh my God, I can even do something there, play around, then come back here and sort things out. And you'll even express your story differently. Right now, you express it like a person.
It's uncontrollable, that's where you'll be speaking. I went there, took a look at how everything is set up, and now it's gone. Everything is much clearer. I came to the conclusion that it is much cooler here than there. So you'll talk about it differently. Even about that, I went, I looked, I saw, and I made a decision. This is my will. Yes, yours too. This is what free will is for a person who isn't scared, terrified, or intimidated. Someone who has already manifested saying so.
And the same thing happens here, right? So a lot of people live in this fear where everything is happening. I'm not responsible for anything. Nothing is under my control. There's always someone above, bigger, better, richer. And I feel so small and miserable. And there are those who say, okay, I want this. I've already done this, and I'll do that tomorrow. What does this depend on from practice? And what does practice mean? Is there something specific, or can you practice anything?
You know, by and large, if we talk about what to practice, you practice implementation of your whims. If you have learned to realize your whims, then you can apply this to anything, to become a world champion, or to become, for example, a big businessman, or to become a great sage, a Nobel Prize laureate. You can apply it to anything. These are the state that opens the way to any goal you've set for yourself. And what this state depends on is the practice of that state. Understanding these states, you can do it in different ways. For example, I understood them through the practices I know, which show through energy. Through energy, yes, it's meditation. In essence, of course, these words are a bit of a stretch, but there are people, for example, who have understood these states using only their physical bodies. Well, for example, a difficult childhood, problematic parents, a whole life spent in the yard, and a person gets shaped, and in the end, they get stuck in such a way that as they move through life, they always have that skill. He can outsmart anyone. He can stand his ground in front of anyone. So he kicks the door open to the office of some official and he says, hey, it needs to be this way. And the official sees his state, sees it and thinks, damn, I guess I won't argue with this one. Well, I can argue with grandma, but with this one, forget it.
Listen, we have an interesting point here. Who took strength from this, from their difficult parents, from the yard, and so on? After all, for many people, this only results in endless future trips to the psychotherapist. And also, half of life was spent on that difficult childhood, as you say, and then the person spends the other half dealing with that difficult childhood. Yes, that option exists too. And what does that depend on? Why does it help some people but hurt others?
Because it's a person's choice.
And is it then, when he is a small child?
At every moment in time, at every moment, a person has, look, I'm sure you've said at some point that, well, this guy is strong-willed, right? You wouldn't dare say anything against him, but this one is just a useless wimp. Well, what did you mean at that moment? You meant some quality of a person, their state. One is in a state of being a wimp, while the other is like a belt of a strongman, as they say. I can tell you that all of this reflects on the energy level. So we have, for example, the lower part of the abdomen. From here, a certain energy manifests, a certain form of it.
The second center, right? No, it's not about the center.
From the center, it's a completely different conversation. Some kind of tentacles. The third hand, and by the way, I'm not the first person to talk about this. For example, in either among the Chinese or the Japanese, most likely, when they hold a katana in their hands. They imagine that a third hand comes out of their abdomen, and they all hold the katana with 3 hands. These are ancient practices of theirs. These principles aren't the most secretive. You can find them. This is the third hand. This is indeed the manifestation of the energy of will, when it's believed that when a person holds a weapon with 3 hands, they are incredibly skilled. If he is just holding it with his hands for now, then he's not even a master. This is about will, and this is will when a person releases it, when he knows how to learn how to use it, when it manifests. Have you ever argued with someone, for example, yeah, and you know that you're right, but the person arguing with you, doesn't want to agree with you, and there you are, standing your ground. At that moment, your will starts to activate. You may or may not be aware of it, but it's active at that moment. So if your will can overpower another person to agree with you, if it doesn't overpower...
But you might doubt that you're right. Look, you're saying, yes, this is our choice. So when something happens to us, for example, a difficult childhood, let's go back to childhood because I love psychotherapy. It really has a lot to do with childhood. Some people spend 20 years figuring it out, and some dig into it their whole lives, and some make progress while others don't. So a person goes through a difficult childhood, a specific kind. You're saying that it's at that point in time for a person, this little person who's about 5 years old, for him, let's say it's his choice to perceive this as training. Yes, as you expressed, how to react. So what does it depend on? I remember myself at 5 years old, well, roughly, yeah, I wasn't really aware of what was training and what wasn't. When they hurt me, I cry. When they do something nice for me, I laugh. Well, I mean, everything is very primitive and I didn't have any kind of internal discussions. How can I make that choice? What is it?
Look, adding the children, you're alone. You don't have a sample. Look, Moat, the other kid. You can immediately see that in this one there are certain qualities and in that one there are different qualities. What does that depend on? I can assume it depends on how tired you are of it here. That's how it is. If you're really tired of it, you'll go on endlessly. A strong-willed person will simply cut through the space with their energy if you're still ready to suffer, using phrases like, they will give me this, they will show me that, they will take me by the hand and lead me somewhere. Well, that means you still have to sit here for a while.
So can we say that it's this young soul, an ancient soul? How many times someone has reincarnated? How much experience they've gained?
You know, there's probably a certain meaning to it, because I know that there are processes when you're in this flow. In this line, there might be an overwhelming number of bodies practicing, meaning they've already had their fill. So about the very not pain and with desire to stop all of this. And there are flows where the overwhelming number of bodies are just happy to play and have fun, to suffer, to struggle, to be happy, to rejoice. So this contrast, is about experiencing one state and then transitioning to another state. And try explaining the real world to such a person. They won't want to listen, they don't need it. And here are those people who already, they've played enough, who since childhood seem to think that they can do everything. They already, most likely they won't want to be here. So this is an inner need to stop this game. And you can stop this game in various ways, but also to finish off the remaining ones. Passions. You're already honest about it. So you don't have any doubts. Gosh, I want this tiger. You know, it's not really accepted in our culture. You say it doesn't matter what your culture is. I want this. But what if you say, but if it's not accepted in the culture, I will suffer and struggle, but I won't allow myself this body, so then I won't have to die, and after that I'll be a star of happiness. Well, all right. You're still not done playing, I see. And this can happen, among other times, in childhood, when a child is like, yes, no, all of this manifests from the very beginning, of course. But one way or another, when a particle of consciousness enters the material world, no matter where it comes from, while we hang a curtain there, tie up the drapes, this particle appears somehow. And when it enters the material world, it clearly understands why it is entering, what scenario it is entering.
Into what family?
Yes, into what kind of family, what the starting conditions will be. All of this, it's subordinated to her design, a small individual design. Another thing is that when she gets into all this and finds herself in all this, sometimes, like, oh, I think I overdid it. I've already lost my memory.
Let's go back to childhood.
Let's go.
So yesterday we were talking and you gave an example that with a woman, for example, when the feminine energy, when there's some, it's the same with a difficult childhood. It's very easy to break that. Can you repeat that thought, reproduce it?
In a person, in a particle of consciousness that has manifested in this world. In a woman's body, the energy is 3 to 4 times more mobile than in the particles that have manifested in a man's body. That's why it's much harder for men to engage in all these meditative practices than for women. That's a fact. It's just a fact. So I also had a course recently, and a husband and wife came. The husband practiced, prepared, and for the first 2 or 3 days he was really showing results, and the wife was like, well, okay, I was with her for the first 2 or 3 days. She was just getting into the process. Then she got into the process like a standing person. She overtook me in her condition. He was already sitting there like, what's happening? I was preparing for these practices for her, and she just naturally, as if she had been practicing for a lifetime. I mean, I told you about this. Relax. You were born in a male body. That's how it is for us. I also practiced for years, but what's the point here? As if the balance of this situation is very difficult for a man to break. It is very difficult. Then you can bend to put pressure on him. But for a man, if he sets a goal, he will move towards it. It's easier for him, he can achieve it. It's just easier for men to maintain a direction, and that's it. For women, it's very difficult to hold a direction because they are too mobile. And if someone influences her in a specific way, she can easily be thrown off course, like when she's all inspired. Right now, I'm going to understand something, and I don't know what it is. Mom, Dad, there's the neighbor. And that's it. You're no longer ready to understand anything. Your vector has already been shifted, and you've lost your whole direction. You're using that elevated energy to hold yourself back and tense up. So you're directing your strength against yourself, using your flexibility to hold yourself back. This can be a very big problem.
So let's get back to what you said about the child's will. To make a decision at that moment, so if this child is a girl, and how to combine what you're saying with that moment. Oh, this is a willful decision, like, screw you all, I'm going to do everything as it is. And combining that with the fact that she's a woman, it's very easy for her. With a word or an action, you can knock someone out of that center and then it's all gone. For her, no matter how great her power is, it's about making that decision. And so what happens? Happens. We discussed that even now in adult life. Why do people sleep conditionally? Yeah, why is it so hard for some people and easier for others? Because everyone has different paths? Different paths lead to different outcomes, and some people were broken while others weren't. But still, there was a choice for the person. Let's take a woman. At that moment when she was broken or not, of course,
Still, the conversation here isn't about choices, it's about how much easier it is to break someone. It's also 3 to 4 times easier to break a woman than a man. You don't even have to try hard. Just press down once. Or your flexibility, you adjusted it to that pressure. No matter how you know how to do it, if you're a doormat yourself, obviously, you won't be able to express it, but if you can express it, then, well, it's obvious how feminine energy adjusts to you right away. But it can also adjust and then get thrown off. So flexibility works both ways. Therefore, if the child doesn't get discouraged, doesn't fall into depression, doesn't fall into hatred, doesn't feel resentful, if they refuse those reactions and keep moving, like, okay, fine, this is how it is for me, but what else is out there? But there's this option and there's that option. What can I do to have it like she does or like he does? So they start looking for options, meaning they don't focus on their problems, they focus on solving them.
This is his choice, despite the fact that he has already been broken, well as what it means. Broken.
I say it again, it's easy to knock someone down, but it's also easy to get back up from it. There's this saying, don't believe in women's tears. Why did that expression come about? Because yes, she can cry very sincerely and then just come out of that state. If you bring a man to tears, I don't know, something really significant has to happen for that to occur. That's it. And a woman easily enters and exits these states. There's a lot of flexibility, and the same goes for her choices, which states to hold on to, which state to strive for. She can use her flexibility as she sees fit, and she can take examples to emulate from those around her, exploring those examples. For example, I definitely know that girls are much more inclined to idolize than boys. Why? Because it's easier. A boy, for example, might not have a hero as much as he has qualities that he admires. For a woman, it's like this, or like this, or like that, or like that. And little by little, she can seep into that with her flexibility. It doesn't really matter what the starting conditions are. It's a person's choice. A person in a female body and a person in a male body have different characteristics. But they are balanced.
Well, I want to argue here to get to the truth. Look, let's talk about childhood and psychological traumas, so to speak. Thinking in the language of psychology, these events that happen, it doesn't even matter if it's a woman or a man, a boy or a girl. It happened in childhood. A certain event occurs. Let's take violence, for example. And at that moment, the psyche crystallizes, as they say in psychotherapy. A person grows up, but a certain part of them remains. So at that young age, let's say when they're 3 years old and she doesn't grow up, and any triggering event can spark the reaction of that 3-year-old child. And it often happens that this reaction is so strong, it spasms in the moment of an adult person, causing them to fall back into that state and be unable to respond. This also includes all mental disorders. That is, there are mental disorders where people specifically go the roof, let's say, and he can't function normally at all. And there are the same types of mental disorders, as I see it, just to a lesser degree, where a person is also constrained. They either start yelling, getting angry, breaking dishes, or on the contrary, they become so tight-lipped that they can't even say a word. So for me, that's also a mental disorder, just to a lesser degree. For some, it's even to a lesser degree. And it just like on this scale, what am I getting at? So some event triggered this crystallization, and for some people, I see it like this. Among many of my acquaintances, it seems impossible to do. So some action, a willful one that you're talking about, is controlled by their reaction. It's exactly with this problem that people go to therapy for years, or not for years, and seek treatment. So what would you say to this question? So this go and do it, or take your will? I see that for some people it's very hard, and for others it's just impossible. It's like their brains work differently. What do you think about this from an energy perspective?
I can comment on this as follows. You look at the middle of the event, and I suggest we look at the source of this event, and it's precisely at the source that everyone, absolutely everyone, is the same. There's only one cause. You see a person who has already jumped out of the window and someone is trying to catch them and they're getting hurt and all of that. And I'm trying to look at how he ended up there, in that window, how he got up there and what pushed him.
In which specific window? Let's get more down to earth. Let's get more down to earth.
For example, a boy child receives by a parent on the butt. Is that the start of the event? No, that's not the start of the event. So from Matvey, a little back. And what preceded this? What preceded this is that he wanted something for which he doesn't have the means. Let's say a toy. And since he doesn't have money for the toy, he starts to get upset, throw a tantrum, and resist all of it. He starts generating a lot of negativity around him, for which he gets slapped on the butt. He is traumatized at that moment. To some extent, yes, I agree. And actually, he's more psychologically traumatized than physically, because no one in their right mind and sound memory would hit a child, just like adults fight among themselves. You pointed that out correctly. But unfortunately, many parents do that. Then in the morning, with the child, and everyone, and such things were taught too, and it happens. But we're looking at the middle of the events again. Let's rewind a bit further back. The child wanted a toy, so why did this happen in his life? Why can't he let it go? You understand perfectly well that the parents have no money, and kids understand that too. So this is basically what's happening right now. There are two reactions when I get a sudden whim, a passion, and circumstances say, not right now. And I'm like, well, okay, not right now, but I will strive for it. And it's completely different when I have a whim, a passion, and the circumstances say, I'm like, no, I'm going to do a bunch of different things that won't lead me to any results at all. But I'm going to do them because I'm just a stupid kid, that's all. Like this goblin, he says. And this reaction, that is your passion that you can't control, will lead to a spirit guide coming in to help you control yourself. At first, it will be an influence at the level of energy impulse, then it will be an influence at the level of the psyche's words, and finally, it will be an influence at the physical level if you don't understand it at the level of impulse or at the level of words. And the child feels the impulse from the parents very clearly. That is, he starts doing some nonsense, the parent just takes a look at him and he immediately turns around. Yeah, he understands that he's been seen, that what he's doing is not right. He feels it. But he can disagree with that, say, no, I want it, it's my whim, I'm passionate about it. Why is this dangerous? When a person begins to interfere with your material world with his passions, that is, to give it the highest significance for himself. What does it mean, the highest significance? When he refuses to live if something material becomes unavailable to him. A very simple example, a completely primitive example. Here's a person playing a computer game. Yeah, his parents might turn off the computer, but let's take the simplest scenario. The lights went out. Just like that, the whole neighborhood went dark. The parent is completely out of it. How will the child react? If he throws a tantrum, he's going to have some serious problems. He can't control his passion. He can't say, well, the circumstances are like this. Okay, I'll wait. Well, or I won't wait. I'll just go to sleep. If he reacts like that, he has no problems. And no one will stop him from playing that game. But if he starts to throw a tantrum, if he begins to reject reality, if he starts putting up defenses, if he begins to hate, to feel offended, that is. In other words, he suddenly loses his ability to cope. At that moment, he's committing suicide. And if he's not stopped, he'll end up killing himself. So someone arrives who values his life and they ground him, stop him.
I understand. The message here, it's based on passions, right? So initially the child has certain passions that our parents, like a spirit, stop. So it's for our benefit, roughly speaking.
It's not for our benefit, but for the sake of viability.
Us.
Yeah, it's better to get a crack than to get sick with some incurable disease.
I understand more passions, okay? But I'm saying, since I'm in this field of psychotherapy and I interact with different people, there are situations where it seems like it has nothing to do with any passions at all. When children are very small, like infants, when something happens, various kinds of violence, completely unrelated to what the child wanted. When a child lives in families with psychopaths or people with other mental disorders, it's already there. When it comes to families of alcoholics or drug addicts where there's some kind of violence, whether physical or psychological, it doesn't matter, different situations can happen, and the child might not do anything at all. A drunk parent stumbles in, starts something he wants to do. The child doesn't even...
You're starting to look at it from the perspective of materialization again, literally.
So still the reason was somewhere to manifest in such a light. So somewhere, how can this be understood? Somewhere in another life, in another space, there were some passions that started from infancy. Is the child starting to work things out with the help of these parents, or what?
The soul wants to break free from illusions because those illusions limit it greatly. If it doesn't break free by a certain moment, indeed before death, that moment is called the awakening of Brahma. Here we are, sitting together, and we really don't care. Who's sleeping there? Who's not sleeping? He hasn't awakened yet. What era it is now in the south, it doesn't matter. We live in a moment relative to the life of our soul. That is what is the soul. It is that very thing that is aware of the entire flow while it is there and deeper, but for now it is like this and here. This is something that is aware of the entire flow as a whole. It understands perfectly well that if nothing is done before the awakening of Brahma, all of this will disappear before the awakening.
This little tomato, which initially has to do with the awakening of the one who is the main one in this tomato, who created our reality.
We are not aware of this. Our soul is aware of this, therefore it's not very interested in us playing games here. But she also understands that until you play enough of it, she will still be embedded in all of this. It's very difficult to find the words because it's one thing to see these processes and it's a completely different thing to be at the very edge of that process and explain it to another person who is also at the edge of that process right now. But the essence is this. Look, if we draw an analogy, imagine that you are a train conductor and you were told on the radio that in, let's say, 100 kilometers, the bridge has collapsed, it's been destroyed. You already know something. The passengers on this train know nothing. If you, for example, say, okay, then you need to slow down, you start to slow down, whoa, stop, the train is broken. You understand the train is speeding, it won't stop now. Well, I'm just throwing ideas out there right now. The train is speeding, it won't stop. You're the only person who understands that right now everyone is doomed. And those who are on the train, they don't care at all. But you are all in one line. You're all in the same flow. And the soul is that very conductor who understands that everyone is doomed. And right now, you and I, we're just like those passengers sitting there, let's say, in the first class, right? And we're not worried about anything at all. And the train is speeding along. And for the soul, this process is obvious. Not for us. That's why the soul tries with all its might to find such a... Here, I think it needs to find a balance, a setup, so that at the same time, a person, being a part of consciousness, can let all these little pieces of consciousness play and have their fun without overdoing it. And just how gracefully the soul manages to do this, how skilled it is, but it all happens so quickly. Yes, there are souls that have already practiced in many bodies, and they go like up, 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 everything's good. Right now, we just need to finish up our last passions, and then we're out. And there are souls that still have some work to do, probably.
But why is she doing this?
She wants to live.
And if we get too caught up in these passions, as you say, then our soul won't survive. She will end up in this proud place, nowhere and there. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, if only. Look, do you have dreams? Yes. Are there people there, plants part of the planet, and then you open your eyes? Where does all this go?
A separate question can be asked. What is this space of our dreams where all of this happens?
Where does all this go exactly? There's nothing is the same here. Your dream is simply a platform for any manifestation of the omnipotent there. And those who have become the cause of your omnipotence, they are completely dependent on you. Here is Brahma. He is omnipotent in relation to us. We are the cause of his omnipotence. Yes, at the same time, we are absolutely connected to everything. But in the form that we currently recognize ourselves, if we lose this form, then we lose ourselves as conscious beings. Let's Not go into energy right now, but stay at the level of the physical body. So, do you feel warmth or not from the fact that your body will live, everything will live, breathe, you'll be watching, everything will function, but your brain will completely reset to zero completely?
Are you saying that I won't be aware of anything? I won't be in this body? Or what are you talking about?
No, I mean that the cycle of your self-awareness will start over. But at the same time, everything will be fine with your body.
So are you saying that my brain will essentially become like that of a newborn?
Yeah, not even like a newborn, but more so because he has already lived for 9 months somehow. So he has already managed to do something, he has already reacted in some way and built his own karmic line. By the way, in Thailand, they count not from the moment of birth, but from the moment of conception. In some traditions, in some cultures, it is believed that a person does not begin to live from the moment they come out of their mother. He is already forming, he is already reacting, he is already laying down certain building blocks for his life while still in the womb. That's the right approach. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Let's do it one more time. So we only have physical bodies, that's it, no souls, nothing. So we only have physical bodies, nothing more. Right now you are a person, you have a name, you have memories, you have a history of your life. And now I'm telling you, like the men in black, I have this little thing in my pocket. I press it now and you forget everything. This will happen in 5 minutes. You'll forget everything and there will be no way to remember it. You have 5 minutes left. So is it normal for you or not? But at the same time, your physical body, it will stay just as it is.
But I don't understand what I'm going to do with all of this.
You will disappear. You will just disappear and that's it. And just simply vanishing into thin air is not what our soul truly wants. And that's definitely not what I want.
But if we all awaken here to the point where we can play and not overplay, the soul won't disappear. Am I understanding correctly?
That's where the process of merging into one whole begins.
To Brahma? To Brahma.
Well, I wouldn't say it's to Brahma. That's where the process of merging into a certain level of hierarchy begins, where you, at the level of your flow, become aware of the entire flow. God, it's so hard to explain this. Look, we can be aware of ourselves inside the body. We can leave this body and travel in our astral body. We cannot just exit, but enter into what is the flow. And then we will get inside this flow that is into the body of the second attention, which exists but is not accessible for our perception. But we can become aware of it. The body of the second attention also has a center of awareness. His consciousness, his brain, his mind, which sees everything at once. Look, you have a cell of the body. Is it a part of your body? Does it have the same ability to become aware as the whole body?
I suppose maybe...
Potentially, but not at the moment. At the moment, it's dealing with its own cellular matters. There's a belief that about, 90% of a person's cells are renewed every 7 years. So every 7 years, we essentially grow anew within ourselves. Do you ever worry about the fact that those cells in you are dying? You don't care at all because your integrity is unbreakable at that moment. So, being in the material world as particles of consciousness, we are like that cell, which has an expiration date. After the expiration date, you will most likely cease to exist. Because right now it's the era of Gaul. If it were a different era, I would speak differently. Most likely, not 100%, but most likely, if you don't do anything. You will simply cease to exist. You will be erased. You will be no more. There will only be a black dot left, this is how corpses are burned, and all that remains is ashes. In the same way, consciousness compresses and a black dot remains. This is a state of complete reset and the inability to restart the cycle on your own. This happens at our level. At the level of the soul, the process is different. There, the gate simply awakens and everything disappears. It completely resets, but as a certain form, as a part of the universe, as a part of creation, the energy remains. It doesn't go anywhere. This energy is already depleted. It no longer has a personality, doesn't possess physical bodies, doesn't have its own ideas or goals. And our soul really wants to find itself in this situation. And to avoid finding itself in this situation, it needs to convince every single particle. And there is a practice called the body of light. By the way, in Buddhism, there is also a practice called the rainbow body. What is this practice? It's when you, at your material level, convince every little cell to be matter and help it transform into energy. And your whole body turns into pure energy. So you change your form from humanoid to something more energetic, yogic, onto some kind of yantra. Here our soul really wants to change its form from a stream smeared on the egg of the universe, invented by Brahma, to some other form which will be independent of this. Just independent, it will be able to go beyond the egg of Brahma's universe and travel wherever it wants.
And this is only truly possible by awakening every single one of the...
There are different variations, but in any case, the overwhelming majority must be awakened. And you can't awaken while you still have passion, because you're ready, for example, to die, right? But to get some material trinket. So what do we do with you?
In general, let's get back to the point that all these situations in our childhood, and not just in childhood, happen so that we wake up, so to speak.
In order for us to maintain an equilibrium in our daily lives, where we don't fall deeper asleep, while the tendency is still towards awakening, the tendency, if a person, regardless of their age, has a tendency towards awakening, then they have a green light everywhere.
Let's clarify what the tendency towards awakening means.
The fire in the heart is igniting.
Fire in the heart. What else?
Yeah, that's enough. This is the main indicator that cannot be manipulated by our brain, because our brain will convince you of anything. You, like Dasha Impulse, convince me that I'm doing great, and he will convince me that I'm bad, and he will convince you that you're bad. So our brain easily adjusts the facts to shift you towards the task you've set for yourself. Oh, I'm suffering. Yes, you're suffering. There's causality. Oh no, I'm actually doing fine. Yes, of course, you're doing fine. There's causality. And all of this happens in just 1 minute. That's what our mask does. And that's why he will never explain to you what you're doing right now. Are you still diving into death? Let's not call it a dream anymore, but rather death. Or you start to transform towards freedom from all these processes. So you either tense up, clench, and shrink, or you relax, release, and ignite. The indicator is the heart. If your heart is burning, no matter what your brain tells you, you know that everything is fine.
But that's exactly where we started. When I, for example, do something, I first listen to my heart to see what I'm going to do. And from there, I base all my choices on that fire in my heart.
But that's if you can feel it. But how many people couldn't feel it? I couldn't feel it at all since childhood. I didn't have any heart. I didn't have that indicator. I had radars that indicated where something valuable was and where something wasn't. It was intuition for the most part, not the heart.
But igniting that fire is exactly what you're teaching, right?
Including that, of course, that's included. It's part of my practices. This was particularly evident right now, and it's all already available. The thing is, just because it's available somewhere, it doesn't make you feel warm or cold about it. But when it's already available inside you, that's something you can't take away, and you can't wipe your feet on it. And when that became available inside me, and when I saw how my whole being was saying, you're doing everything right, but my heart was closing, I realized that I was doing something wrong. That's when I completely restructured my life. I stopped doing the things that kill me, but not in terms of actions, rather in terms of my states. At that time, I discovered for myself that the defining factor isn't what I've already gotten my hands on or what I'm doing with my hands. The defining factor is the state that I generate. And speaking of children, you've definitely interacted with a lot of Aho kids. And you can immediately see this child is really bright. Their eyes are so clear. But this one, well, crap to crap, it's not worth talking about kids like that. Yeah, you look at him, and he seems a bit off, a bit twitchy. Something's definitely not right with him. Angry.
But we don't know his family, why he is like that.
Does it matter in the family? We have the data.
At first you think, right? Of course.
A little piece of consciousness came here, and it doesn't want to be like this. She wants to free herself from these bone-deep reactions of hers. But whether she can do it or not, that's free will. Those are unpredictable processes. But the difference is immediately noticeable. And the child who has access to their heart from birth is actually a very happy child, especially if someone can articulate this on a physical level in the material world so that everything becomes clear for them on all levels. But again, that doesn't mean everything will be 100% fine for him. I've seen situations where society managed to convince these children and make them turn away from their hearts. Basically, you know what this manifests in? How much a child can feel the surrounding living beings. If a child can approach a cat, break its leg, and not a single muscle twitches, then there's a catastrophe in their heart. If a child is as gentle, careful, and cautious with a living being as possible, it means that at the very least, their heart is in good shape.
Damn, let me argue with you again. I've seen these stories with animals. It's a huge pain for me. I've loved all of this since childhood, but I had a family that would say, oh, this little kitty is so cute, while a child is being beaten from a young age, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, of course they go on, and then they project all that accumulated pain and hatred onto our smaller brothers.
He's already like that. He's already like that.
So you think that if he hadn't been beaten, he wouldn't be breaking the cat's legs. Actually, the opposite is true. Even if he hadn't been beaten, he would still do all of this. That he originally came as a torturer, and regardless of how his mom and dad treat him, he would still break the cat's legs.
Well, maybe he didn't break the cat's legs, but he lacks empathy, or whatever it's called. He doesn't feel the other being. That function is closed off for him. He could have become, for example, a very good surgeon. Easily. He could have become a good, for example, law enforcement officer because he wouldn't empathize with criminals. He wouldn't get caught up in all those blockages. Just, I don't know, a tax worker who's just a cog in the system doing their job and would be a very quality employee. So he could have become something useful for society. But I'll tell you again, it's all just wishy-washy. We have the fact that this particular piece of consciousness, undoubtedly based on its own visions and comprehensions, made the decision to choose such starting conditions. And after making the decision to choose such starting conditions, those starting conditions, in fact, begin to unfold for her. Why did she do that? Why did she decide that? You just have to push a person into those states so they can remember it. He won't remember just to say, listen, when you were a piece of consciousness, why the hell did you decide to start from that? He will tell you what you are carrying. Go get your head treated, most likely. But if you somehow manage to push him into those states, he'll explain to you why he chose that. And it will be completely logical. You'll say, yeah, that actually sounds pretty good. That's the idea, basically. Why not? And I can even tell you more. So right now, we're all like children, right? They're so unconscious, they're such victims. But there are, for example, athletes who choose a coach who just pushes them hard, and they even pay him for it. Why do they do that? Because they understand that with such a coach, they will fulfill their request. While with a coach who says, oh, don't worry, everything will be fine, they won't achieve much. Yes, there are people who choose another coach, but they don't claim anything. They just don't need that. They need a coach to support them, to fulfill the role of a father figure, to be a caring, loving man or woman. There are people like that, and they turn to such coaches. And there are coaches who will never make you a champion in your life. And there are coaches who will completely drain you and dry you out, but you'll become a champion. And you can consciously, as an adult, say, yeah, I'd rather go with this. It's hard, it's painful, it's scary, but I feel like I'm just way ahead of all my competitors after this. And here, a completely different picture starts to emerge. And when we treat a child as to an absolutely underdeveloped piece of meat, of course, it's horror, fear, a nightmare. And when you treat him as if in each of us there's a Mahadev, a part of consciousness that consciously chose these starting conditions, you start to perceive the whole situation from a slightly different angle. And it's not as straightforward as one would like.
I'm saying what I see. Right now, people are actively going to psychotherapists and psychologists to address their childhood issues or their identity as a part of consciousness. They're heading somewhere towards that same open heart. Can working with energy help deal with psychological traumas and with me as this insignificant part of consciousness, but insignificant in the sense of being harsh or the way I originally came here? How can working with energy help me patch up all these holes?
You'll gain awareness and clarity. When you gain awareness, you'll say, oh my God, these aren't even holes. That was actually my idea, and he is wonderful. Yeah, it's tough, but man, I've made some kind of evolutionary leap here. So, as you dive deep into the world of energy, You become aware that everything that was once perceived as problems and disasters suddenly transforms into a labor camp that has had a significant impact on you, allowing you to step from a state of being 1 foot in the first gates, in a space where you are disembodied, into a state where freedom is already shimmering before your eyes. Many parts of consciousness choose the apocalypse of Kali precisely for this reason. That's exactly why they come here, where the very space is just constantly pressing down on them. So you shouldn't focus on where a person started, you should look at where they're heading. And if he's progressing on all levels, let's call it success, then it means he chose the right starting conditions. No matter how wild they may seem to you. If he's moving towards the grave, then the starting conditions he chose didn't work out. The bet didn't pay off. And I can even tell you more. When a particle of consciousness chooses the starting conditions, it also chooses, it understands, I just remember myself at this moment. It realizes how much it risks, how much the probability of development may not be enough. But by complicating the starting conditions, you potentially open yourself up to a much greater leap in your probabilities.
More opportunities. Am I understanding correctly?
A great speed. So look, you can choose starting conditions where you fully realize yourself in just one life. Or you can choose starting conditions where you have no chance of fully realizing yourself in just one life. But at least you can, for example, return to the flow to reboot yourself. All of this is resolved at the entrance. There are people who decide that's it, enough. These are very ancient streams, very wise streams. It doesn't matter which word to choose. But there are actually people, and I have quite a few of them around me, who consciously enter the material world and consciously leave it. They have enough time to develop to the point where they understand how to leave properly, rather than just fading away into nothingness. There are such people. But again, there's always a chance to stumble. Unfortunately, and even the fact that, for example, I repeatedly stepped out of the flow into matter, returned to the flow, stepped out into matter again, and returned to the flow, I had enough time to become aware, to develop, and to say, this is another way to remember everything clearly.
Do you remember that?
Yes, of course, I remember. I'm already at a level where if anything happens, I can consciously at least return to the flow.
So do you remember your past lives, or what is it?
It's not past lives and it's not the future. It's the multivariance of all events that happen simultaneously. I simply move from one state outside of time into another state when time appears. And then from that state, where time and the space of time prevail, I again move into that space where there is no time. It's like time in a video game and time in the physical world. So in a video game, I can go through 50 days of game time in just one day. They have slightly different rhythms. There is, for example, a rhythm like the inhale-exhale of Brahma. Although in our time it's some millennia, there are rhythms, for example, the sleep and wakefulness of Brahma. Although in our terms, it's millions of years, billions of years, different rhythms. And I remember how I was making an effort, messing up, like, no, at least I'll return to the flow. I was entering again, setting all the rules of the game, choosing the starting parameters, and again trying to climb out to get out of here.
What did it look like? Can you describe it? So you say you were setting the starting parameters, something like that. Did you ever see that picture or realize what was there?
I can clearly and thoroughly explain to you how this happens. When the process of dying begins and death touches you, first of all, there's also this moment. For example, at this point in space, in this material body, I have already gone through, I am going through, and I am showing practices of contact with my death. When you take the initiative to touch it, nothing threatens you. But when it takes the initiative to touch you, that's already the end. Death is an integral part of the flow. It's like the immune system of the human body. The immune system can kill any cell if it doesn't like something. Death can kill any particle of consciousness if it doesn't like something. So, if this particle pulls you into matter, pulls you into a spasm, pulls you into tightness, if it turns into a cancerous tumor, death will regulate everything.
Into matter, if it pulls...
Into matter. So what is matter? This is a more crystallized form of consciousness.
Well, look, we have a huge number of people on the planet who are completely and entirely in matter. They have been like this for many years, and they have always been this way. And they are completely in matter. So why don't they die?
They die?
No, well, they do die eventually, but they live their lives wonderfully, completely immersed in matter.
Wonderful in what? Matter?
In matter, well, I don't know how they live there.
That's, where it all ends. Well, wait, do you know or don't you know?
No, I mean, I don't know what kind of processes are happening inside them, happy or unhappy.
Yes, of course, they are unhappy. They are rotting alive. How can a person be happy if they are rotting alive, if they are dying of old age? How can he be happy? Of course, he's full of fear. He's trying, resisting with all his might, swallowing pills by the bucket, running to all sorts of shamans, I don't know, witches, healers, nothing helps. He still ages and dies. What kind of happiness is that? And it just turns out like that with most people. That's why I say, guys, what reincarnations are you talking about if you can't even keep track of your own body? Reincarnations. But I'm telling you technically how it happens. In your lifetime, you have enough time to realize that you are not just matter. It is enough for you to find the bindu in your heart during your life, to realize what the energy of love is, to realize your deity in your heart, soul. And to accept the fact that the only true direction to move in, where you won't be scattered or smeared, is to return back to your soul. If you don't have love, if you don't know how to generate that energy, if you resist that energy, if you don't know it, if it's unfamiliar to you, you won't be able to enter your bindu. You just won't be able to get in there. You don't have the key, the access card. But if you feel this love, not love for your dad, not love for your child, not love for your dog, but unconditional love, just because you are aware of it. It's like a part of you, like a part of your body, just like how you breathe, it's an inseparable part of you. You have love, it's an inseparable part of you, but you might not find it in your lifetime. But if you do find it, if you find that bindu point in your heart and suddenly you don't have time, death touches you, it knocks you into a space of emptiness where you have nothing. No soul at all, no kind of infinite energy. You have nothing there. It's just pure consciousness. And if in this pure consciousness there are already these settings that I know about the soul, I know about the flow, I crawl and crawl and crawl back into this flow through love, through these vibrations, then death essentially becomes your soul. So your soul comes and says, not this time, let's try again. And you enter the flow. At that moment, the possibility of various different events opens up. As much as your perception allows, as flexible as your consciousness is, your consciousness can become more and more rigid. The more rigid it is, the more constrained it is, the fewer variations you have, and the denser the worlds available to you become. If it's somewhat flexible, you have a greater variety, a larger expanse of space, and you're like, okay, my task is to transform into absolute fire, into absolute mobility, into absolute plasma, however you want. But I have some unresolved gestalts, some unfinished things that still pull me back.
For example, what could those things be?
Well, for example, you haven't had enough fun driving cars yet. You might not have had enough fun in sexual relationships.
So again, for the sake of my passion, it's through passions that you are called, I reincarnate once more. My soul feels the decision to play again.
So that these crystallizations can finally melt away.
So that it can play and no longer want to play.
Yes. And you being in this state, like this. Well, here, probably, let's make it heavier so we can get through it faster. Right, here, exactly. This aligns best with my goals, my values, and my tasks. And you go there like this.
What tasks are mine?
To relax, to transform from crystallized consciousness into a consciousness that is akin to the original in a consciousness that is akin to the original.
Can we say that crystallized consciousness is a sleeping consciousness? Those people who are in a deep sleep and just, like robots, mechanically perform some actions dictated by the outside. We can say that, yes.
But still, this person remains a human. We can say that about each other, for example, but if we compare him to some lower worlds, then here he is lively and running around as if he's not himself. It depends on what we are comparing ourselves to. For example, this is also a kind of trick. When I compared myself to myself, I was doing great. I was practicing, I was growing, I was feeling fulfilled. Everything was going well. It was all super. I was just loving it. I was comparing myself to myself, I looked at the other people around me. Oh, I've surpassed everyone. I'm doing great. And then the circumstances came together in such a way that I looked at my teacher, my Shana, who hadn't been standing still all this time, who was also practicing, also realizing his intention. I looked at him like that. I'm like, damn, I'm not getting anything done. I need to invest even more time urgently.
But what if he has a completely different task? He has different incarnations, everything is different. He could have played around 300 times already while you might not have even started. Why look at others? But you come from different points.
To realize your intention as quickly as possible, to realize your intention specifically in this life, to not stumble in this life so hard that you end up drifting into the space of the first fracture and lying there in a state of inactivity, relying on a miracle.
But what determines that the person who is currently living in our bodies will inevitably fall into this point?
Trend?
Can we somehow determine, look at people, see how they live, and say that you have a chance to reincarnate, to go into the next life, but you have no chance at all?
Yes.
What are the signs?
Far in the heart?
Yeah, almost no one has it.
You're absolutely right. So I'm telling you, you're all going to kick the bucket. You have no chance, just calm down. What reincarnations are you talking about? And those people with warm hearts, first of all, they don't watch YouTube videos. They're doing just fine on their own. They understand everything already. Secondly, for the most part, they are well aware without me and my stories. So the likelihood that a person, even if they have an open heart and mind, will watch my video and say, well, okay, he won't worry about it. People who are watching from the perspective that they really want to understand and they haven't quite figured it out yet, they need to get oriented. They need to accept the fact that most likely while they're flying straight ahead, what do you suggest they do?
They are watching.
Of course, practice. I can only recommend what I have done myself. What I have done myself, I have already made public, and it's all available. What else can I suggest if I haven't done it myself? I did it, I succeeded, and I'm like, guys, look how it's done. Although I completely understand that there are other ways.
Working with energy, it gives you, I asked what it gives, what will happen, and you say that it's this release, this awareness about why all of this happened to you in childhood, not just in childhood, and so on. And in a way, I see an analogy that psychotherapy provides similar things. I'm curious. We have the mind. We have energy. And I'm interested in how they are interconnected when we work with them. We have a physical body and a mental one. I clearly know that when I work with my mind, there are also certain stories happening in my body. So I released something, well, let's call it that. I changed something in my psyche, in my thinking. I might get over some illness, for example. Is my energy also getting aligned? And how does it all interact? Of course. So when I work with the mind, my energy also starts to work. And the same thing happens, that when I work with energy, something in my psyche and thinking also changes, and in the body accordingly.
Let's, a little bit about me. Just a quick remark. I studied psychology for 5 years. I came there hoping that the scientific world to be more effective. I studied for 5 years and I thought, oh my God, this is all so slow. It's such a drag. No, this is too much. I want it to be faster. I need it to be faster. So I moved on. So everything you're saying is true. It's all true. And that's absolutely right. You can approach it from the psychological side, affecting both the physical and the energetic aspects. But it's slow. So a person can spend, for example, 6 months with their personal psychologist and solve one problem and be satisfied with that. And the man who sat in meditation in one weekly cycle of practices, they resolved a significant number of problems in their life, felt fulfilled, and now they even come up with stories for themselves. It's faster, and the more subtle the level we reach, the quicker everything happens for us. Yes, you can also work on the physical level, the seed, that's really it.
I gave up a long time ago since not all is here.
It's clear, but you can take the losing option, you can, but it takes a really long time. A lifetime might not be enough to reach the level of the mind quickly, but there's a chance it won't be enough at the energetic level very quickly either. But unfortunately, there's also a chance that it won't be enough.
So let's ground this really quickly. What does it mean, for example, your course, practical energy? How much is that?
There are about 16 lessons, not 16 hours, but 16 hours of lessons, like 5, 10, 15, 20.
So how much time does a person need to complete this course if they practice for, say, an hour every day?
I don't know, maybe half an hour? It all depends on the person themselves. For example, I've seen all sorts of variations. And it's hard to say definitively that in the morning you can feel the wave from your shoulder, because some people skip the initial practices. In general, the first practice will be really simple, but then they get stuck on something more complex and sit with it for a month. There are people who just can't get into the first practice at all. They really struggle to engage in these processes. Then something eventually breaks in them and they finally find it. From there, everything goes smoothly for them. I can say that all practitioners have absolutely identical stages. But the speed at which each of these stages is passed is different for everyone. And there are so many factors that if we start listing them, now, I don't know, we might be sitting here until the second coming. Every person comes with their own baggage of knowledge. Every person comes with their own set of skills. Someone, for example, spent 2/3 of their life on developing their physical abilities. And just now I saw the energy, and in principle, this physics does not reset to zero. It will still play a role. Someone might have spent 2/3 of their life on their psyche, and that will have a much bigger impact. For example, I had a case not long ago with a woman who is also a psychologist. She was wondering how to help everyone around her. She's already experienced, but she's an older person. She didn't understand how to do it so that her experience could be useful, but there's no time, and she's not as strong as she used to be. And so she started to have all sorts of doubts. I showed her the energy level. I showed her that you can be a teacher for all the people around her, absolutely silently, just being present and in a state of awareness. And she opened up. For her, it turned out that this is also possible. So she only saw teaching at the level of words, like how it's taught in college. Words of lectures, or some seminars, all of that. I said, look, there are other ways to teach energy, and she immediately got it. Well, in the very first consultation, it all became clear to me. Now I understand how I can share this knowledge with the people I want to reach. Well, for the students, it's all about their states. It's really about the state. She will convey a much larger informational package than if she just talks about the timelines, right?
For example, I understand that it's individual for everyone, but after going through the course, I can hardly guess at all. But it's definitely faster than working with a psychologist.
It's just that I found it quickly. I was looking for something faster. I was looking for maximum efficiency and maximum speed. But for a person born, well, roughly speaking, I don't know, within the city limits, I mean, I'm not some hermit or recluse who, besides a village with 2 houses and my cow, I didn't see anything. No, I've seen how the world works. I know what money is. I know what comfort is, and I wanted to find a system that wouldn't force me to change. This guy covered in ashes, running around the cemetery with his naked little thing. And I wanted to remain a human, to stay true to myself. But I also wanted the opportunity to move forward very quickly. Being myself, I can move forward. I found this system, and it hasn't let me down. It gave me everything I needed. And she continues to not give any further, because the knowledge I haven't yet fully put into practice. When I do, all of this will no longer be with me. My Foisni transition into the state of the body of light will mean that I've embodied all my knowledge, which means I'm not looking for any more information or watching anything. No one's videos. I'm not trying to read any books. I have plenty of them. I absolutely know what I need to do at every stage. I share this knowledge, and as you can see, I'm not covered in ashes from head to toe. Although I completely understand, I'll say it again, that there are other methods and approaches. This method, this approach just fit into my life like a perfect puzzle. But asceticism didn't work for me.
Well, I think those who are watching us also don't find asceticism suitable. Yeah. So let's touch on those topics. Not everyone has the task of breaking free yet, like you do. People are still interested in the games that are happening here. You just touched on the financial issue. How? Our energy is connected to what happens to a person's finances. I'm curious, have you seen a person who is doing terribly, everything is about energy, and at the same time he's, I don't know, incredibly rich? Are there such examples?
I've seen wealthy people who were rapidly destroying themselves from very luxurious states, but their tendencies were already crying out. Their energy wasn't really there anymore. I mean, they didn't have that powerful energy at that moment. At that moment, when I saw them, they didn't have a very strong energy. Their hearts were open. So these people with an open heart, it's not just that they're nice guys. That's a misunderstanding of such people. They can be very ruthless people, very demanding people. They are individuals who can be incredibly effective and incredibly dynamic. And at the same time, you won't find anything in them. Due to some kind of weakness, it's impossible to control them. You can't bend him, you can't do anything with him. This is simply a pure embodiment of power, which is not slowed down by the surrounding reality, because the heart allows it very competently. This whole thing is impeccable. How can I even understand whether my heart is open or closed? Everyone talks about this. It will open. You need to understand this. You just need to develop extrasensory perception in yourself. Yes, look, somehow this has not been developed by people who watch us. There are some signs by which a person can determine that I have it definitely closed in advance or just a little bit open if you are inclined to hate, take offense, fall into despondency. To isolate yourself from the outside world. So you have a tendency to close your heart. And even if you have something open, you can quickly lose it. If you have kindness, a benevolent, adventurous spirit, and this healthy presence within you, you don't give much importance to all the nonsense that happens in your life in endless amounts. The tendency to open the heart, understand that the heart is just a term for now. But if we take, for example, the word that translates to love in Sanskrit and look at it in Sanskrit, then this process is connected to this area. It sounds like, well, and it forms a completely different word, acceptance. And so if you accept yourself, Iavo, with all your demons and problems, waiting like so what demons.
Let's clarify. Well, everything that qualities you don't like.
Everything that hinders your life, everything that creates situations for you that are just a pain in the ass. I did it. I could have been calm, so why did I say that?
Don't blame yourself, so to speak, right? You say, well, yeah, that's me.
If you don't like the flow, you just don't do it. Or you make the decision not to do it. And then, well, I made it. Well, okay, I need to somehow accept this decision more flawlessly. I didn't drink. That is, you don't grow what you don't like, you grow what you want. What do you want to turn into? That's also a very interesting skill. Well, okay, we're going in a different direction now. The tendency of Sushina.
You say that people with open hearts can also be ruthless. It's not that they can't be, they are ruthless.
Don't confuse cruelty with being harsh, as if cruelty has escaped into this. Yes, that's right. Not just yours. Very often people equate cruelty with ruthlessness. I'm still trying to somehow draw a line so that there's a possibility to talk about this and ruthlessness. It's like, for example, when you have a child, you help them, you see, for example, with an open heart and sincerity. What is the right way to push him in that direction now, while he is full of passions and full of rejection and all that? And you just grab him by the scruff and move him where you can see. At that moment, you are ruthless towards him, but at some point, having gone through this stage, and after going through such an interaction with you, someday he will say, damn, I'm glad he was tough on me. I then pushed like I did back in my time. My parents too. It's from one thing to another, then to a third. And then after some time I said, yes, they saw how I was resisting, but they pushed me and I'm glad they did. This has allowed me to be who I am now. Well, if they had pushed me back then, I would have lost a lot of time, but still I would have somehow forced myself to do it. I would have squeezed it out of myself. That's why it's not cruelty, it never is. You're forcing someone, you're torturing someone. That's when you don't allow someone to show weakness and miss the moment. That's ruthless, and you don't allow yourself to miss moments either. You see a moment has opened up and you move forward despite everything. And against all odds, even if you want to sleep or I don't know, you have a headache because you celebrated a holiday yesterday, or you started celebrating today and suddenly remembered you have to go somewhere and you mobilize your strength, and at that moment, you show ruthlessness towards yourself while simultaneously expressing love. Of course, if you don't accept yourself, how can you show love? You accept yourself, you say, yeah, it's okay, I'll gather all this up in a little scoop and I will decide.
Well, I really liked what you said yesterday, that an open heart is when nothing can throw you off balance, when you're so harmonious that no matter what happens, you don't react emotionally in a way that leads to anger, resentment, self-reflection, or Self-deprecation. It's like when no external circumstances can throw you off your center.
Your passions throw you off balance. So you have an open heart, everything is good. She says, honey, let's have sex. He says, yeah, no, I'm just not in the mood. And if you have a passion for sex, it can throw you off that state. If you don't have that kind of passion, well, whatever, I'm fine with that. Or like, hey, let's go eat at a restaurant. Like, yeah, what restaurant? Let's just go to sleep. I don't want anything. Or like, okay, at least I don't know, I'll lose more weight tonight. Well, I mean, if you have this light attitude, then it doesn't knock you down, which means you don't have those passions within you. But where you still have passions, those will hold you back. You are killed from an open heart, and you will burn, you will get angry, you will rage. But here's another very interesting point. If you have tendencies towards relaxation and you don't betray those tendencies, you can definitely flare up. You can express anger even at the expense of your own anger to fix the situation the way you need it. And as soon as the situation becomes how you want it, you immediately cool down, you thrive, and everything around you feels safe again. You're loving again, you have no inertia at all, and that's really cool.
You don't get stuck in that state of suffering, resentment, and anger. And then you can...
This rage manifested as a way to return everything to normal. And again, it's all about being loving, you know? I don't know, it's like a form of advice to draw and what the state of Durga is like. You let go and change your form as soon as everything became the way you wanted it. But if there are negative tendencies, if your tendencies are towards being tense, so it happened, the event, and it just doesn't know when to stop. The day goes by, the second day goes by, you're falling asleep, it's spinning in your head, it's eating at you, you wake up, it's still spinning, it's eating at you. The tempo slows down. This event just consumes you and you can't stop. Then a week later, you're like, okay, enough already. Well, no matter what you try to distract yourself with, it's still eating at you, eating at you, eating at you. So that means your tendency is still towards, you still don't have enough. You don't have enough acceptance of yourself yet, and you also lack acceptance of the world around you. The world is as it is, whether you like it or not. It's just the way it is. And all you can do is accept it. Yes, you can adjust it, you can correct yourself, but if you fundamentally push it away, you can't even correct it. It's just that you ignite it, that's it. And by these indirect signs, you can determine and understand where you're heading and what you represent. In relationships, you are like a part of consciousness, of your soul, as a unified whole organism.
Look, that's right. I understand that by practicing the techniques you provide, what will happen to all these resentments, anger, and my emotional reactions?
You will see them on an energetic level.
And what did I see then?
You say, yes, why should I react like that? I'll see the way you're killing yourself with these reactions. You'll see how you can lift yourself up with other states. Yes, the whole field doesn't just shift in one way. With some reactions, you turn into a blooming lotus, while with other reactions, you sink into the swamp. And when you see this, you see your extrasensory perception instantly, directly. Yeah, at first, something flared up in the energy, but you don't see it. Then it reached your psyche, and the bridges started to boil over. You understand more or less, but at that moment, you are already losing control. Your physics have started to act. You are completely out of control. You act just like a set of instincts. Then you reap the consequences of those actions. And later you think, well, maybe I should have done things differently, but by then it's already all happened. It starts to chew you up like gum. And this happens when you don't have extrasensory perception. When you have extrasensory perception, that's when something clicks and it starts, boom, and the spasm starts to press down. And you're already like, whoa.
Quietly, where do I feel the energy in my body or somewhere in our energetic body?
You might be at the level of energy, but inside the body, we have, for example, the circulatory system, which penetrates the entire body. The same goes for energy. It permeates the whole body and field. And you can also see this tendency of yours, like an impulse, for example, your consciousness there. There, you hate it, and then you're like, wait. Or, for example, the first time you reached out to these processes, oh, now I'm going to hate him. And you watch as your energy starts to destroy that person over some nonsense. And you're like, wait, I wasn't trying to destroy him, I just wanted to manipulate him a little. It's like using a cannon to shoot at sparrows. Well, probably not, wait, quiet. Or I got upset with my mom. And you see how your energy starts to kill your mom. And you're like, wait, I wasn't trying to kill her, I just got upset, what am I doing? You're like, no, wait, I think I won't react like that.
But this also kills me, this resentment of mine. It's not just about that person I'm upset with, it affects me too.
Of course, we are synchronized in these processes, but you might have health that's 50 times better than your mom's. And if after that you sneeze just once, she could end up in intensive care. That also plays a role, the strength of the person themselves.
So we start to see all of this?
Yes, you start to see all of this. It becomes instant. That is, you see it even before your body has moved at all, before your thought starts to spin you up.
So that's where the speed comes in, because when I'm working with the psyche, I see that when I already have emotions, I start to hate everyone. I'm like, okay, I hate something.
And then the spasm passes, and suddenly, for example, your heart starts to crystallize. Crystallizing, and you're like, wait, what's happening? What am I doing? Where? What? Where? And suddenly an event starts to unfold. It's such a ha. But the reaction had already happened in advance because our energy reacts instantly, while the physical body only reacts after some time. And our energy sees this event before you see it on a physical level. And you manage to experience such multifaceted relationships with all of this even before it has happened. And sometimes it happens that, here we go, that's probably already in the realm of miracles, but there have been different situations where a person sees events and that's very bad for them. He remembers how to loosen all of this up just a bit more. As long as at the level of consciousness, at the level of energy, he invests all his resources in synchronizing with his soul, because it's in the soul, besit, that everything is loosened up. This is the perfect role model. He takes this perfect... There. So I feel it. So it's pressing. No, I'm not looking here, because if he starts looking here, he synchronizes with this, and that's it. He starts...
It's overwhelmed. Yes.
He's here. He says, no, yes, it's a strong irritant. Yes, he feels it, but I won't give my attention away. I'm going to look where there's fire, where there's movement, where everything is good, where everything is manifested, where there are no problems at all. Everything is just great. So I'm going to synchronize with that. And this thing is on him, pressing, dissolving. Then bam, he gets a notification, a text message on the phone. Yes, he's looking, hello from the tax office, all your accounts are frozen, everything is bad. He's holding his heart, now finishing reading this message. And at the end, the last name, first name, patronymic is not his. And he's like that while the person actually has a ton of problems, a lot of manipulations, and he realizes that he's already been caught just by reading the opening lines, and then he reads to the end, and it's a text message, and reality has already transformed. Yes, it's like at my grandfather's village. I think I'd better sort things out because, if the bell is tolling, it means it's ringing for someone, and that someone could be you.
So can we say that time stretches in a sense? I mean, this reaction when people, I just understand what you're saying. I've experienced such processes. It's like a bell tower. The possibility to see it before it happens, how slowly it unfolds.
How does this emotion fit you there or something else? But you also see how your energy starts to get distorted just because of that. You say, I don't want to distort my energy. Hey, wait, stop. Do you understand what the deal is? Wherever you direct your attention, that's where your consciousness flows. Wherever your consciousness flows, that's what you synchronize with. If you're looking at the problem that's coming at you, it completely devours you because you synchronize with it. It's crystallization. And you start to crystallize. You freeze up around it. And if you know where your eternal flame is, infinite, flawless, absolutely, and you switch yourself to that with all your might, and that is nothing but your soul, nothing but your heart, then this thing loses any power over you. And it's quite real. This event can actually just dissolve. But if you were looking at that event, it would have collapsed you, simply put. And the ability to see all of this is practiced through the techniques that I demonstrate in itself. If it appeared on its own, yes, that's great. And if it didn't appear, there are techniques that can give such results. I've achieved that result, and I'm sitting here satisfied. Just recently, there was also an event that I caught right at the moment it was approaching. I held on to my heart, it ignited, and I lived.
A day when you're satisfied and happy the land. So about illnesses, I'm curious. We were just talking about the connection between the physical, the psyche, and the body. Is it possible for a person to be, seriously ill with a terrible disease or not, and something in their physical body is bothering them? They start working with energy, and their problems just dissolve, let's put it that way.
It's possible, it happens, but due to my positioning, people don't come to me. How should I put it? For healing, people come to me to get that very hint to keep moving forward on your own. When people come to me with serious illnesses, I don't know what happens to them next. They came to me, I explained it to them, I showed them. They realized, understood, and said, now I know what to do. And probably they're doing well. If they don't come to me, I say that we trusted you. No, it's all somewhere with them.
But the principle of how it works is exactly like I understood, right? You shake it off, right?
You understand the principle of all this?
The principle of your illness, how it is created, is right in your body.
And why it is created, and through what mechanisms all of this happens, and what purpose it serves for you, and what it holds back in you, what tendencies. And when you let go of your tendencies, you say, yes, now it's clear to me that I don't need to go there, then you no longer need that illness. It goes away. But these transformations are transformations that can sometimes be so harsh that without extrasensory perception, you would most likely describe it as, what's happening is that everything is bad. Yes, 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 probably everything is bad, but in reality, they're just tearing down your shack to build a cottage there soon. And you just watch as that shack cracks, breaks, and falls apart. If there is extrasensory perception and your spasm, for example, starts to twist it, it can go as far as making you have snot and drool, and you might experience some emotional states that seem to come out of nowhere. Again, if you entered these processes through the knowledge that I illuminate and show, you came in calmly, well, finally that damn slab cracked, and you just walk past the corpse. I understand that everything will be fine from here on out. But if you went through these processes without preparation, then it's quite possible to hit the brakes and to say, no, 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 let this slab hang on a bit longer because I don't understand what's happening next. That happens too. As they say, there's jnana and there's vidya. So I'm pushing everyone towards vidya when they no longer rely on me, but on their own extrasensory abilities. When he gets such a tool in his hands, one that no one can take away from him and with which he can operate further, without including any courses, anything like that. There are lectures, all of that, so he gets a tool and he becomes free and independent because of it. This, the right path. And when you get stuck with your teacher and you can't see life without them, where's the freedom here? Where are your opportunities, teacher? When Igor would come over sometimes, I'd say, listen, I'm really not feeling it in this practice. Let's do it together. And he did it with me, and I was getting it all right. Then he would leave, and I still couldn't get it right.
But you teach in such a way that people learn to do it on their own.
I don't just teach, I push them forward. I don't agree when someone comes to me and says, listen, let's just reveal it there. And this is also kukukuha, not right now. We'll uncover it together, we'll work together, we'll toil over your problems. Yes, I'll help you, but I won't do it for you. Because otherwise, I will give what that raised me and taught me. I will give the system that allowed me to become who I am if I just start making decisions there. Some primitive problems for another person, which they can't handle on their own, but what if I help them solve it? But for the most part, he will work on his own in this process. He will see how it works. He will feel how that stiffness goes away or comes back. How energy reacts to his thought, how energy reacts to his physics, how physics does not allow energy to pass through itself because somewhere there is a vertebra, some kind of one has fallen out, he does not know about it. Or maybe a muscle is so tense that he doesn't even feel it. People came to me who had a very good opinion of themselves, and I looked at them in the first second. I think, now this is going to be interesting. We're going to break some illusions. And these people then, when they encountered themselves without rose-colored glasses, when they encountered themselves already as extrasensory perception, they grabbed their heads and said, how could we not see this in ourselves? I say, that's how there was nothing to see it with.
But then everything you described, the vertebrae, the muscles, it all harmonizes if you work with hypotheticals. Of course, of course.
But there, a person gets the opportunity, not just to work with pure energy, although that is also possible, but they get the chance to help themselves from all sides. So if you see a problem, for example, I'll give a simple example. I got a splinter stuck in my hand. Can I get rid of it with energy? Well, I can, but it will get infected there, and then my immune system will take care of it. Why? I'll just take the physical approach and remove that splinter from myself. And sometimes when a person uses their extrasensory abilities, they see a problem that can be easily fixed with a physical approach. And he goes and resolves it on a physical level. So why complicate things? For example, a person, let's say, overstressed, muscles in the area, the neck, the cervical region. Can he fix that with energy? Maybe he can just go and buy himself one. A session with a masseur, and that masseur will work on him in one go.
Everything in all folders will be clear when working with energy. He will see how best to work on this problem with energy, either on a physical level or in some other way. It's best to work on all levels at once.
You just have a sense organ that speaks to you, does not deceive, does not create illusions for you, allows you to perceive yourself as real. Because in most cases, a person is so mired in his illusions that he perceives himself as real. Only when something falls away from him, then. But he sees it also at the level of fields. So there's a spasm, and the body is lacking something, because where there's a spasm, energy doesn't flow well. And in about 5 years, most likely, something will crack inside the body at that level. Why wait those 5 years for something to crack, for it to become obvious, if he can do something about it? That's exactly the kind of trends we're talking about.
Yes, the one you're talking about, where you start to see that there's some kind of impulse in the energy. And then, for example, this suddenly affects yours, the liver, or somewhere else.
Or maybe it has all already happened, and everything has already taken its toll. But you can work both on the energy level and on the level of your troubled mind, and on the physical level all at once. It's much more effective, because if your body is all crunched up, you won't be able to let energy flow through it. You won't be able to channel energy properly. You will take your kundalini, and it will burn your cells to ashes. You can't just do it all of a sudden like that. If you just... So first you'll do it like this, like that, then... That's when it will work very quickly and effectively. But you already realize what you need to do. You're no longer flailing around, like a scared cat running around the house, bumping into everything. Yes, this is my favorite. Where to go, what I looked at. Since we work here, we work so that there is still a knowledge of it, about there are still practices of care, practice what care.
Let's pause for a moment before we move on. The same can be said about other issues. We talked about the body, how you can see illnesses, our emotions, and how all of this can be harmonized through energy, bringing it to where you want it to be. Does this also work with problems outside of my body? So it's finances, which we started talking about, relationships, for example. What's happening? There are any other areas, games that a person plays and wants to play now.
Of course they do.
How does it work? What's happening? So a person starts practicing and...
He sees that when his energy is fiery and dynamic, everything happens just like that, with a snap of his fingers.
It's that easy, or it's quick, or it's like this. So it's both easy and quick, really.
In Russia, as a matter of course. And when his energy stops flowing, problems just chase after each other like from a cornucopia. And so, if you can't perceive your own energy, you start to flail around, trying out some spells, horoscopes, convincing yourself that everything will be fine next year. Damn, you're not in the next year, you're here and now, but you might not even make it to next year. That's how it is in our world, in our time.
This is exactly the state of crisis that people experience when everything is falling apart.
Panic, fear, uncertainty. It's all because you don't have enough ability to perceive. When you have enough ability to perceive, you say, well, all right, I definitely overdid it here, got too caught up in the passion. My energy, it tightened up, stopped flowing, and this has led to the space around me starting to collapse too, and everything is collapsing, but I can change this for the better at any moment.
It's a complete mess right now, for example. Health, business, everything, it's all going downhill. I don't know where to... And even if I'm in such a state of exhaustion, in total victimhood, everything is really bad for me. If I start working with my energy in this state, it will begin to change. There's no state where everything is already lost and nothing can help you. Or you can enter these practices from any level and things will start to shift either gradually or quickly.
When you will see your energy, you won't be able to say it anymore out loud. Because you will see for yourself how you ruin everything for yourself. You yourself, with your own impulses, your own vibrations, your own shields that you just put up in front of yourself, in front of your face, and you try to get through the shield.
I create problems where none...
Of course. So as long as you're taking actions that lead to those kinds of results. But for some reason, you don't want to accept that. You know, this is... So I want to, for example, go outside right now, and I'm moving forward, but there's a wall ahead. I'm explaining for the viewers. There's a wall ahead, I just hit against it. A knock again. Knock. I hate everyone. Knock. Oh, everything is breaking. Knock. It feels like I'm losing consciousness. Knock. Why am I doing this? I lack, for some reason, the awareness to realize, perceive, and see that the door is to my right. And so, when you're working on your energy, you look at your past self from yesterday, and you say, oh my God, how embarrassing.
But I don't leave self-flagellation. That's right, because it is what it is.
It's because when you look at it, you can only laugh at yourself at that moment, because taking it seriously, watching your energy, watching what you are, what you imagine yourself to be. You're such a damn... All right, let's just say that nobody saw this. And you move completely differently. So you don't even solve any problems. You just start moving. So what? It leads to completely opposite results. Because it's obvious to you, and by analogy, yes, there's even a story about 3 blind sages who are feeling an elephant. One is in the front, another is in the middle, and the third is at the back. So when you're one of those sages and that elephant represents your problems, you'll never solve them in your life. And if you just open your eyes, suddenly you realize that the problem doesn't even exist. It's just not there. And all the importance that you assign to that problem, it just becomes some kind of utter nonsense. That's right. And that's it. And that's it. And then you do what you want. And when you notice again some old tendency, habit, reflex, that the cake is slowing down, spasming, closing the knives, holding you back like, wait a minute. And that's how I reacted for all those 20 years. Well, if 20 to 50, that's how it was. What the hell? I did that, and now I don't understand why I was so careless. It all just fell apart. I have no money at all. It's a miracle that I've survived with such a reaction until today. It's just that he becomes so different when it becomes obvious. So, just like you said, these things are resolved, yes. And even when everything goes differently, oh, it's like the line doesn't react that way anymore. I mean, it instantly becomes obvious to us. The speed of your transformations is crazy. The only ones who will limit you in all of this are the people around you who are used to the old you. They'll be the ones saying, let's slow down. What's going to happen to him?
Isn't it possible that if I start practicing, all my relationships will fall apart and everyone will leave my life? It's like a rule, or do some people have families, for example? Yes, for those of us watching, will everyone's families fall apart now? If they start practicing, or what? But this process will definitely start. It's a process of destruction because they want to destroy their family, well, they like it.
So they'll have to, it's all about balancing it on your own, taking full responsibility for yourself. That race won't work anymore. And this is him. And I'm here, what? Is there something from me? That's it, they'll get away with it.
A person will take responsibility for themselves, right? But at the same time, you say that the most harmonious relationship is when one practices and the other doesn't.
Because the one who practices takes responsibility for themselves. That's it.
Okay.
He already... Hey, yes.
I will take responsibility for myself and eliminate it. All the energetic reasons, whatever they are, created everything. All you need to do is maintain your state.
An unconditional state of love. If you hold on to it while observing all the antics of your loved ones, then you hold on to your family and your man and everything else. But will you be doing this and will you be doing that?
It already depends on my desire.
And here there are endless variations. For me, In my life, that person whom I hold on to, no matter what and against all odds, has been my mother. Until recently, it was my father. My mother and my father want the best.
I hold on.
I look at everyone around me with tests and react completely condescendingly, meaning I don't impose anything at all. I allow them to be exactly as they are, and I don't drag them anywhere. I don't teach them anything, and I don't try to influence them in any way. It brings results. It gives them the opportunity to live much longer than they have lived. In other circumstances, it might really be visible. For example, my father at least 14 years at least, or even up to 30 years, he outlived everyone. Just all my friends and acquaintances. I mean, all his friends and acquaintances at some point ended up dead. And he was sitting, I was flipping through my notebook, flipping through it, and it became a thick notebook. You just put it down like that, and then you just took it away. There is not a single living person left, but he is still alive. At the expense of what? At the expense of, thanks to the fact that I made the decision that these are my parents, I will hold on to them through my state, no matter what and against all odds. Although, yes, I had some complaints, there were things I didn't like, yes, they kept throwing crap at me, doing what they do, and guys, I'm already 30, but she's already 40 for me, but I held on to my state as much as possible, and through that state, not just that. Of course, we synchronized with him. They had a greater degree of freedom than if I had been involved in it at all. It's the same for you. It's the same for any practitioner. He can make the decision to maintain these states, despite the fact that the people around create absolute chaos. He sees this, and he doesn't interfere with them creating this absolute chaos, but simply shows an example through his own state, because you can't force someone to grasp the truth. Well, it won't work. He will either start striving for it internally for some reasons, or he will just continue living as he sees fit. But you can make that decision. And in those families, the people who practice with me, I mostly say this phrase. I say, if a person starts stuttering, listen, maybe you can get divorced, throw everything away, leave the family. Maybe you can't. I'm a guest. Listen, I'm not saying that. Let's focus on practices. Let's focus on developing yourself and managing your stress. Quarrels, let's go. Spending your time and resources not on this chatter in your head where you come up with all sorts of options, but rather focus on igniting your heart. And the people around you make their own decisions.
They will have a line with you, but I'm already talking about what is actually happening. In the area of relationships, there is now a request to strengthen their relationships, or, for example, to deal with being without relationships. He can create relationships by using energy to improve them, not to worsen them. You can destroy everything without working with energy.
I repeat, through energy, he will be able to take it all into his own hands. And I mean, to endure it and then make a decision about whether he wants to keep it all in his hands or not. It's his choice, it's freedom, it's a degree of freedom. You're trying to squeeze out of me that if you practice this, you'll have love like a carrot. I say, you will practice this and you will take it into your own hands, and what happens next, you will determine. Let's take a specific situation. A girl, there's a husband. Tension starts to build because financially, everything is fine. The guy is just sitting on his ass, not doing anything, and doesn't want to do anything. She's getting anxious about it. Because, well, it's not how it's supposed to be. He's supposed to be doing something. And all the financial flow goes through her. She asked me, listen, maybe we should just stop all of this. I say, well, do you want to stop all of this? Actually, I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm bitter, I understand. I see everything now. I understand everything. But how can I make him do it anyway? He started to move, I guess. I don't know. He started to change. I say it very simply. Theoretically and practically, it's impossible. Practically speaking, that's just how it is for me. Well, I like this kind of charged person. If it's difficult, you really have to do it. I say, look, you constantly, React to every action. You already have a prepared response. I say, that's right, that's right. I say, you find yourself there. For the toys in Sonia, you already have a prepared response. Oh, there you find him. For a bottle of beer, you already have a prepared response. All these reactions aren't the most pleasant, meaning you start nagging him. So, in the grand scheme of things, I say, just ignore him. At that moment, you're distancing yourself. And she says, just keep an eye on it. Now there's only one reaction to everything he does. Just one, of course, including in sexual relationships. And that feeling where you really want tenderness and affection, that's what it is. Maybe, or maybe it won't be for a long time. And that's also a big problem in relationships if it's not there. So I say to all these antics, you have only one reaction. You ignite your heart. You know how to do that, right? He says, well, okay. And she starts doing it at first. I'm texting with her. She says, it's not the same at all when we're practicing together and you give in. What were you hoping for? So when we're sitting there, everything's fine, of course. Hearts are on fire. Everyone notices when this happens in front of you. And you have only one reaction that you can show. It's not easy at all, even though you know how to do it. Everything breaks down. Your psyche, your reflexes, your position, your demands about it, everything falls apart, but she shows that heart. A week goes by, then another. I think the text went through, but something's off about it. Feedback stopped, and I'll return you changes, you see, as you do in general, that's all. Holy shit, how everything changes. Less than 2 weeks have passed. I just stood there for a while so that she could gather some peace. Here is experience in this matter so that we can talk to her on equal terms. It's not like, look what I know, while you're still just listening. It's more like, we both know this now, so what are you going to do with it? And she's really fired up. At first, it was really difficult for me and Arya Yagod, even just, well, I was really fired up. I was opening that heart, but then I was closing it again. She was struggling with herself, not with him. She was fighting her own tendencies, her own habits, and she overcame them. She learned how to do it, and things started to improve in that area. Everything began to come together, but she understood that she was the one doing it. Here's the essence of everything I've been talking about. I said, listen, we've talked a lot with her. So, do you understand who is doing all this? Yes, everything is going well for him. Yes, some kind of job has come into view, loomed. Yes, he went to study. Yeah, you understand that any day now a business could form here. I mean, he's an extrasensory. He sees this ahead of time. I say, well, you understand that this is all... It's good because of you.
Let's talk about a field where there aren't just two people, but rather one person. Someone who is practicing with finances. That's the only thing there. Me. And my field of finance, my business, or my job. So if I want to change something there, by working with my energy or what's actually happening in that area?
Well, in order to improve any area of your life, money is actually just an indirect reflection of the volume of your consciousness. The more consciousness you have, the more money you have. There is such a correlation. And so that you have a lot of consciousness. First of all, you need to have a solid, unbreakable connection with your soul. So look at how all of this is arranged. Yes. Hierarchies, values you have. If in this hierarchy of values, something is placed above your own soul, it doesn't matter at all. That is, the higher the synchronization with your soul, the higher the direction of attention and resonance with fiery states. If something is above that, it won't work for you under any circumstances. It will always be broken. All those nerves are washed away, and it takes away your strength, whether it's money, relationships, or any kind of games. In short, if you already have money, but they've drained all your nerves, and if you don't have any and you place money above your soul, then you'll never have any. If you place your child above your own soul, that child will just drain all your nerves. If you place your soul above your child, the child will be of very high quality.
Well, the same applies to all other areas.
In all areas. So basically, you see how it works. So you don't hear me and you agree with me. Agreeing with me won't change anything. You see how it all works, and you act accordingly. So in the hierarchy of values, synchronization with the soul takes priority over everything. This gives you vitality. So with this vitality, you manage it however you need, wherever you want, to make things good. And all of this can be seen through, again, extrasensory perception. Extrasensory perception is a practice that develops. There it is. The scheme is simple, and it shows how the soul determines its place in your value system.
It seems to me that forever knows everything, but how to determine this? How?
By what criteria? It determines that it is in the first place. You can feel it.
She's not in these games.
We can feel matter, we can feel our thoughts, we can feel energy.
Extrasensory perception, I think.
So at the level of energy, how does this happen?
Energy isn't given there. To her, to the soul.
Energy isn't given.
I think so, yes. Energy goes outward. Here are money, problems, and something else. Everyone has their own role in the game in matter here. And the soul is deprived.
Absolutely right. So wherever you direct your attention, wherever your consciousness flows the most, that's what is most important to you. And there is one more nuance that is very important. Many overlook it at first. They can't quite reach the perception of the process. I'll tell you, you can sit down and practice with your soul. I practice with my soul.
Where's the money?
Oh, an hour has passed. Oh, I'm feeling good. So I practiced with my soul for a whole hour. How much of your consciousness went there? And the next situation, somewhere on the street, a drunk guy steps on your foot and is standing there breathing on you, burning out from. Just nod at his face for that. How much warmth of your consciousness is spent in literally 30 seconds of time? Much more. And so, if you're just focused on the time, like I spent an hour with my soul, but she was yelling at the guy for only 30 seconds, you don't understand what's happening. But if you can see your consciousness and how it moves, then you understand that you can send an impulse inside yourself, and this impulse will surpass everything you do throughout the day. This will be an impulse of the strongest love, the most powerful impulse of sincerity, an impulse of happiness that will flow to me. A new TV, I'm happy. Oh my God, I know the existence of my soul and I'm happy about it, and I also have a new TV. It's amazing, but the impulse went there. And the ability to feel these processes, to see and be aware of them, allows you to do everything correctly. And if you're still just looking at it in terms of hours, like how much to practice, an hour or two, but not about that yet. It's exactly the amount of consciousness that either went out into the external world or went into synchronizing with your soul. Your consciousness isn't needed. She needs you to synchronize with her. And you can't synchronize with what you don't perceive with your senses. You just can't synchronize with it. That's it. The mechanism is very primitive. That's how it is. But no matter how much I explain it to you, until you feel it for yourself, until you see the world's reactions to it, that's all. It still won't be knowledge. It will just be jnana, just information. But when all of this becomes your experience, even if just once, that's when you really see it. This is already what I promote, what I show, what I constantly encourage. Why are you bothering him, enjoying himself?
The fact that I react, that's already something. Well, you don't understand my reactions.
If you don't let someone enjoy life, then you won't enjoy it either.
What were you saying about pleasure? That's a separate topic. We're going to discuss that this is also about passions, meaning he's showing off right now, saying that it feels good for the soul, but that's also about passions. Bend over, show that you're better than the rat, the track, and the wardrobe, chill out and relax.
It's a pity that he harmed you with that.
I don't see it. He bent over backwards and calmed down. If it were simple, would be...
All right, in his case, let it be 100 times. As you say...
So, you think it's worth it this way?
You shouldn't interfere with others' lives if you don't want them to interfere with yours. As you are to it, it is to you. If you're always the one interfering in everything, you'll get shut down from all sides. If you're constantly pulling your life partner up short, pointing out that they're doing something wrong, then they'll start pulling you up short too. If a mother suppresses her child's will, then they'll get pushed around and dried out at work by their bosses.
But it's precisely quite about acceptance. And what if you don't look at the person?
Well, yeah, a fool is a fool sitting there, and so what? None of us are angels here. Look, right. I also have garlic.
I have it. It's really like that, you know, a speck in someone else's eye. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I know that.
Well, I hope the practical energy course will help me with this. The truth is, who has a stronger connection with their soul?
I understand everything about the argument. I just think about these triggers. But this is it. It triggers me. I see in people, it's pride, that knife, and all that 550.
So in me, I judge this correctly because you have passion. It's called passion, spirituality. So if you're not spiritual, it means you don't have the right to live. So you're ready to kill someone for not being spiritual.
Well, not exactly like that, but I have some at home, just not exactly.
So let's get to your energy and see what kind of solid people are really surrounding you. It's not all about building things that way, but you're opening up such a possibility in relation to yourself. For example, if I lash out at someone because he did something wrong, I'll do something wrong. I am not an angel when it comes to payment, and they can just lash out at me the same way. It will be unpleasant for me.
Okay, but how do I get rid of these triggers that annoy me? Like when this one is proud, that one is angry, and so on. I see them.
That's your pride, among other things.
My pride. So how do I work with this?
Leave them alone, don't affect their lives.
But that really annoys me.
Because you don't leave them behind on the way, you need to leave them in peace. Shift your attention from the irritant to your heart.
But how the trigger was on the woman? Yes. Like with a woman, you said he's either playing or drinking, and for you it's just one.
Once you master this business, you'll be amazed at how it all works. If you don't master it, then at MMM we won't have any problems with you. Ha ha ha. I've been mastering this for years, training myself to hold my heart. I would ignite it at home and try to make it to the subway and ride around the ring. I couldn't even make it to the subway at first. Everything was just pulling me apart. I was walking and I saw everyone's problems in each person. His crap. And even if I didn't condemn him, I simply observed it by the very fact that there was shit in this one. This one stuck here, and this one was dripping down my pants. And I started to become like them because I began to stick to this. And when you're surrounded by all this from all sides, but you keep your attention in your heart, you feel that warmth, you feel your divinity in your heart, you feel the divine. And here it is, it kind of clouds everything a bit, but it's not an illusion, it will cloud your field, which starts to come out of you and you hold it. It's like, despite the little things, someone bumps into your shoulder and you still hold it in. Then someone steps on your foot and you're like, okay, whatever, but I had a puppy, he was running around right in the middle of the room, but it's just a puppy. He doesn't realize that he's causing no problems at all. Again, everything returned to that state. I mean, through some additional crutches. And then suddenly you look and you've already passed several stations. No way. Before I couldn't even make it to the subway. And it all starts to multiply, to grow. And then a person comes to you. Before, I didn't have the practice of showing my heart. I couldn't show a person my heart. Because if I saw that he was tense, I would immediately become the same way. And all I could show were these kind of combative, willful energies. Because I have them like this. And then suddenly I'm like, and what about the risk for him? And here's a person sitting all hunched up, tense, and I start to light up. I see his tension and it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't irritate me. It doesn't distract me. And I see he's starting to light up right after me.
This is exactly what I wanted to ask about. So the people around you in your life, something will happen with them too and influence them in various ways.
If you can hold yourself, but when this will hang on your hands, that's when you'll ask yourself, do I even want to hold on to this or not? And only you can answer this question, no. No one will answer it for you, except for you, because your heart is your relationship with your soul. And how long are you going to drag those around you? People who haven't reached this point yet, who haven't grown into your choice. Here I am pulling only your parents, already a parent. And that's where the list ends. With a woman, she's a practitioner. Herself, she practiced for a while, then she gave it up. Because she got scared.
But, I mean, these processes, and you don't have to pull either you are as you are, or I don't accept her as she is. I don't interfere with her being who she is.
I'm not pulling her anywhere. I'm not influencing her in any way. If she comes to me with practices, we practice together. She doesn't reach out or ask for help, so she has complete freedom of choice.
So her choices, her behavior, they don't trigger you, right?
Well, sometimes sure, she might poke me and I get angry, but that happens. I don't know. Maybe once every 6 months or so. And after that happens, if she pokes me twice, it won't work anymore. So she helps me. Here are my last pain points to push through, so to speak, so that I'm just aware of them. And as soon as I know something.
They pass, so to speak?
So that I'm just aware of them. And as soon as I know something, as the enemy is external to us, everything will be destroyed. Meaning, not even books, not the claims, that anger that jumps up. It's just that the pain point is lower for us. And only a close person can poke you in for that pain point. A stranger probably won't be able to do that, and that's a good thing. That's how it should be.
I want to talk about the energy of places, the energy of homes, the energy of countries, and so on. We move around a lot, and often you walk into a house, everything is wonderful, perfect renovation, everything looks beautiful. The condition of this house is terrible. Or on the contrary, it happens somehow, a simple house, that's all. It seems ordinary, but the energy there is wonderful. It feels so good that you just want to go there. Like you said, you want to go there. For me, as a woman, I want to make it cozy. And for a man, he wants to keep coming back. What does it depend on? Is there such a thing as a place, the place itself, that has some kind of energy, good or bad, suitable or unsuitable?
Yes, of course. I think it's called Vastu Shastra. So there are some Shastras that describe the geometry of space. If you don't understand this sacred geometry, then it's not sacred. You just mold it however you want. As the designer said in the picture, it looks beautiful, but in reality, that place can be very questionable. So, feng shui, conditionally, yes, that's the first point. The second point is, even if you've set up feng shui there, if the people living there are very any scandalous, negative, you could say toxic people now, they will charge that place with their toxicity, and it will be bad and less inviting.
Who built it? Who the owner of the house is, for example? No one lived there. Who was there? Who expressed those vibrations? For example, we just moved into a house in Ubud where no one has lived before us. It was just built. He said so.
It's fresh, really. I was good. Well, that means there are problems with the feng shui. You could refine it to suit yourself, adjust it, and fill it with the energies you want. Could you say, yeah, you know what, forget it, we'd rather look for something a bit better. This just isn't for us. There's a big difference between a local who calls this place their home and a place that you just rent. Yeah, when you're renting, it makes no sense to do that, and I agree with you. But if it's your home, then even if it wasn't built according to feng shui, it's all in your hands. You can just rearrange things.
Okay, what about it? So here we are in Ubud, Bali, and now we're in Canggu. And there's a colossal difference in energy for me. In Ubud, I don't want to do anything. I'm just withering away. In Canggu, I want to live, create, and make something happen. In a day, God willing, I can manage to get half of my tasks done. In Canggu, I want to live, create, and build something. I can get through my entire monthly to-do list in a day. Well, it's like the energy flows here. The area, yeah, you could call it a city. Do you feel that, or is it something else?
That's because you haven't fully accepted yourself. So there are some energies that you reject and they weigh you down because you're tired of fighting against them. Some energies you accept and you won't have any issues with them. And that's why you feel lively and cheerful.
It's interesting to think about what those energies could be. Well, roughly, can you give an example?
Well, you will be there more from the determination, there, more immersion, there's more meditation. There, the processes that inside, where they take you away from the outside world. And if you don't accept these processes yet, if you still want to rush around, well, naturally you'll be like that. I feel like I'm not on my plate there, but I found myself in Ubud and worked the course from start to finish. I was burning, showing. I was active, and it didn't bother me at all, even though I noticed those vibrations there, especially in those really cool cafes. There's a cliff that, if you look down from it at the area, especially at night, there are jungles, and to the right, mountains. And during the day, your gaze still gets caught. It's hard to see the energy behind the objects of the outside world. And at night, when everything is just covered in shapes, you can see how the rays come out of the ground and go up into the sky. You can see how this huge vortex moves so slowly. Somehow, it's immersive here. And naturally, we get affected by these vibrations. And you don't accept the vibrations within yourself. So you can say that I don't like this state, but if you get affected by these vibrations, well, this state is familiar to me, this state exists within me, and it's good. And you just keep doing what you need to do. You're free from that, meaning there's no struggle for you, there's complete acceptance, and you just glide. So just like in summer, you glide on rollerblades, and in winter you skate, you don't even worry about the temperature changing, right? It's the same there as it is here on the shore. Completely different pain here. Yeah, but it's a party vibe. It's fun. But it pulls you into these endless passionate dances, even though I'm not really diving into them.
Here I am sitting at home and doing my own things.
Finally, yes, it doesn't matter. This space is filled with vibrations for vibrations, like radio waves. Yeah, the vibe is a bit different, the space, and it's still unfamiliar for you to be in all of this. But if you fully accept yourself in all possible variations, then your home will be wherever you are. You'll feel good everywhere.
So am I right in understanding that the same applies to countries, right? Because, for example, we were in Peru, and what I felt there, what Ilya felt every day was so filled with some kind of life energy. We were constantly coming up with ideas, some inspiration, creativity. Well, it's an incredibly cool state, considering that we also had a tour. There were a lot of people all the time, some kind of energy exchange, but I wanted to live in that place, Peru, specifically where we were, and it was everywhere. We were in Lima, in Cusco. What amazed us the most was definitely Cusco, with its incredible mountains and landscapes. It was wonderful. And maybe I just hadn't been there before, so it's hard to judge how it is.
But I admit that just like on our body, our planet manifests in a way that doesn't allow for it, but it is what it is, just like on our body. There are different areas and centers of manifestation, just like on our planet. There are different areas and centers of manifestation. If in Peru my energy center is manifested, naturally it will push me into creativity just by being there. But my seventh center is always above me, and even here I can open up and dive into creativity. Here, you can travel without any problems, and you can be free from all of that if you find it all within yourself. Again, it's about the degree of freedom. If, for example, you have financial freedom and you can afford to travel, well, that's great. For example, I have financial freedom, but I'm just lazy. And another degree of freedom allows me to overcome this laziness by opening up right here and now without physically moving anywhere. But this physical movement is also an important part. Life practice, for example. A situation starts and it develops. You understand that this shouldn't be done, but well, you can't stop yourself. It still starts to tug at you. You still start to shake things up. And you realize again that you understand everything, but right now, you're probably going to explode. If you manage to physically move in space, then you won't explode anymore. But you need to be able to physically move in space. So this applies to both practitioners and non-practitioners, and to anyone. But it's way cooler when you know how it works. So I gave this recommendation during my course to those people who have already screamed, shouted, and said, "We can't hold ourselves back. There's too much potential, too much energy." Right now, I'm just about to explode from some little sneeze from a mosquito. I say, as soon as Marcus sneezes, physically move to another room, and then you'll be able to hold it together. But I'm exaggerating. Yes, it's clear what conflict is explosive. Just get up and leave. You don't need to explain anything to anyone. Just get up and move your body to another point in space. That's it. And that helps. Life hack.
And look, it turns out that The extent to which I control my energy also affects me, especially if I have to. Yes, many are now forced to move between countries. Yeah. And even if it's not by my choice, I have to be somewhere else. It will be easier for me to adapt there, right? I understand.
Yes, it will be easier for you to adapt, and you'll have fewer factors that force you. There won't be any forced situation. It's again about the degree of freedom that allows you to be where you want to be, not where you feel forced to be. And energy, the knowledge of this energy, the ability to express it, the ability to hold on to your own state, releases degrees of freedom that allow you not to dance to the event, but to be the cause of the event. Or not to be influenced by the events that are whizzing around you. A thud whizzed by. It seems like everything is in place because this is a really good dancer. You took the right position at the right time and all those events just kind of rushed by in horror. And this isn't some kind of abstract illusion. It's real life practice. Even right now, even here, we were practicing in the moment. Very strong energies. We didn't know about it. Then we read in the news that a volcano erupted. And in Indonesia, there's a volcano 25 meters away from us. We're just sitting here practicing. There are events, and people are evacuating 10,000 people. We're sitting right here next to each other. Everything's good. We finished our practice, went to eat, and while we were eating, we watched the news, which was interesting. And the next day, we gathered again and went to practice. And everything's good. The practice is over. I'm just sitting here, talking on the shore of the ocean. And that's how it is with everything. So in events, yes, of course, you're not present, but they don't touch you. That's cool, that's freedom.
You mentioned that there would be, and you could really see those energies like coming from the earth, right? They were really strong. And I became curious, talking about how on the planet we have different energy spots. All of them are true. What do you think it means when we travel and somehow absorb these energies? So we arrived at the place, and there, for example, not through, let's say, the 7th chakra. So we learn to interact with them, we record our structure, theirs, or how things happen.
But it all depends on the level of awareness of the person themselves. There are people who arrived, synchronized, then left, lost their synchronization and faded again. There are people who arrived and are synchronizing. They carry it very carefully, and they have already physically moved, but the state remains. And they think, I like this state, I understand it, it's pleasant to me, I will support it and nurture it and try not to lose it. And when I lose it, I'll look at a photo, for example, and remember how that state felt, and I'll get it back. These are more aware people, and they do everything absolutely right. There are real techniques, yes, they exist all over the planet. Actually, if you travel to all these points, you don't even need to practice here. I'll do it myself, planning to do it for you. But why do you think people go to the Pictou mine to synchronize? But you need to know what to do there, not just stand around. To stare at photos, make some flowers, lay them down. Consciously approaching these processes, it's not just about looking at them, but searching for them within yourself. If you're looking for it within yourself and synchronizing, then you're a wise person. And if you just stared and moved on, then the language is all twisted, it's hot, and there's the mother-in-law, there are 50 places ahead. But not this time, I guess.
So overall, you can really travel a lot, gather this energy for yourself, and also find it within, uncover it. And then what we were talking about, the resentment in all these triggers will leave me.
It will become like little Christmas trees. Yes. You know, it's one thing when you're living on, I don't know, 1,000 rubles a day. Yeah. And you have a lot of questions about how to live on that money. It's a completely different story when you can spend 100,000 in a day and you don't even notice it. You don't have those questions at all. Yes, you have other questions, but not the old ones. And when a person has little energy, when they're tense and cramped, there's a lack here, a lack there, the body starts to fall apart because even they themselves don't have enough. Someone else is putting pressure on you, and here they're scaring you. There's a catastrophe. And it's a completely different story when you relax. Your heart opens up, the energy is burning, flowing, you look through time and space, you make a conscious choice, you say, I want this now and that now, and you get the results of your desires. You won't worry about the problems that were there yesterday In no way at all. You will already be worried about what is beyond the horizon, how to live longer like this. For example, there is not 100 years as allotted to us, there are a couple of thousand, and I heard that there is some kind of eternal... Oh my God, I can't remember what it's called. In general, when Jesus Christ didn't resurrect, he created some kind of eternal person who doesn't die in the biblical story. If one person could start that, then everyone can. This means you can tackle completely different issues, and these issues are of a completely different scale. You tackle these questions from a state, like Indiana Jones, you know, who is on a journey, who is on an adventure. So how to live on these 3 pennies? And everything around there is bad.
But that doesn't negate the impact of the catastrophes.
But if you're a practitioner, if your energy is manifest, if your heart is on fire, then reality itself will protect that. Yes, they won't happen. They won't happen. I don't know, yeah. It's just idiocy. And now, for example, you stay, I won't give such an example, come on. Say it, say it. Well, okay, even to the point of...
especially...
Even to the point of idiocy, yeah, like for example, I'm going to get on a plane now, it's going to take off, and tomorrow a volcano is going to blow up right here where we're sitting. This is not a prediction, it's like that.
A suggestion?
No, it would be good an analogy.
Actually, there are many predictions.
About the pain, that it will drown him. How do you feel about that in the context of how he was already drowned by nothing supernatural in the face of the country? There are good people here, they are doing good things, there's no reason to destroy them. They live on this fiery ring and have been living there for not just one.
Talking about locals.
A millennium, of course.
But it seems to me that in the last, 5 years, there have been more newcomers here than locals. And about these newcomers, I'm not sure that all of them are good.
They resist, they pass laws, they make it so that a person comes here and definitely leaves from here. So they regulate this process. Visas, all that stuff. Yeah, no. The locals, there are still more of them here. But if this balance is disrupted, and here, the people who I've encountered partially, whom I've observed in restaurants, in some establishments, will gain volume. There's a place here called Little Moscow. I observe the people there. If there are a lot of such people here, it's quite possible that the island will shake them off.
Well, I'm talking about that too. There are probably about 10 places like Little Moscow here, I know, in different neighborhoods.
That's what we should be watching for, not just waiting for a cataclysm. It won't be about what people do, what's happening, because all these events are caused by causeless events. No, and I'm talking about this, that it's not the earth, it's that a person is occupying such low-frequency states in a crystallized form that the earth wants to get rid of them. There's a form, a large concentration, and that's where the cataclysm will happen. How can you predict it if every person has free will? Well, as we know now, we're approximately various... Well, look, let's talk about strong situations. The strongest earthquakes in Turkey. What preceded them?
I was saying I live outside of this. If we have an hour, let's watch the news. And Rodinka, that's not a game.
In Europe, they burned Komar. All of Turkey was turned upside down. It became a powerful generator of negativity and hatred. The whole country was generating hatred for several days in a row, and there were earthquakes. Just imagine what would happen to Russia or America. When it comes to that, I think a large amount is generated, but I wouldn't say that I see a lot of hatred in Russia. Yes, it's hard, yes, people complain, but they resolve some small problems. I have people who practice with me and live constantly. In America, Russian speakers. So I asked them, how's your decor? Yeah, it's tough. Well, we're managing there, but that's your practice.
I would indeed be surprised if they weren't there shouting that they hate someone, but besides them, there are millions of people who also feel it. They feel it too.
You can't overlook this if you're a practitioner. Yeah, it's tough. People are struggling. But there's no concentration of hatred, malice, and aggression that would lead directly to cataclysms. They managed it in 2 days? 2 or 3 days. I don't remember the exact timeline now. But very quickly, the whole country was generating hatred. If any country to force to do this, well, just wait for a catastrophe. So for now, there's no need to doubt that...
You're saying they'll be here, these ones closest to you right now? You don't know where exactly.
Because all people are starting now, There is a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse, and there is an eclipse of our consciousness. When a person's consciousness is eclipsed, they turn into an animal driven by instincts. That's the problem. Not because the earth is bad or some terrible energies have come, because a person loses connection. With space, a person loses connection with their soul, and as they lose it, they materialize. And only as a material object does it start to act, when it acts only as a material object. These are pure animal instincts because it only protects its flesh. It doesn't protect its soul, it doesn't protect its energy, it doesn't defend against constraining structures. On the contrary, it turns into that constraining structure and pulls itself in more and more, tighter and tighter, stronger and stronger. In a state of permanent spasming, his soul resists with all its might, but free will goes against it. Even the soul can't push back.
So by doing that, he attracts more and more situations to himself, like catastrophes, the possibility of ending up in one.
In doing so, he reduces his viability so much that he starts to pull the very space around him. And space does not want to be pulled along with it, and it pushes him away. Our planet is alive too, it feels as well. There you have it. A mosquito came and started to parasitize you, you slapped it. Now, if people gathered into a certain mass, began to parasitize, began to shrink like a cancerous tumor, that is, to lose your vitality very quickly and very effectively losing your vitality. Well, yes, that's possible. The Earth will immediately react and somehow put an end to all of this. Well, those who survive will be the lucky ones. But if there are practitioners among this crowd, if there are righteous people, if there are those who show this fire of heart, unconditional love, of the original energy, it's quite possible that, well, the Earth will endure. I got carried away. Well, all right, but I'm exaggerating. It's not just the Earth. This all happens on an energetic level. It's all done by forces that maintain balance and harmony. The Earth can kind of complain to them, meaning it can express an impulse that something is wrong here. These energies will react and they will cut off what is wrong there, but if there are any righteous people, it doesn't matter what tradition they belong to, that's the main thing. So that the energy doesn't burn out the sword, won't cut everyone indiscriminately, it will act selectively. That is then, more seriously, the more society spasms, the greater the chances that it will just wipe everyone out at once. But if society somehow manages to shake it off, well, maybe some kind of epidemic could pass through. Well, someone will sneeze, cough, yeah, some will perish. But it's much safer for the population than just, for example, about that. The Earth will turn over, and the megalithic slab will flip. There are really no chances at all. And it all depends on the person.
From each one, I was just about to summarize that everything we've discussed today, whether it's our personal games in relationships, finances, business, health, which many are concerned about, whether it's on a global scale, in our countries, where we live, it all depends. Everyone can take their own will, their responsibility for this.
Himself.
For yourself foremost.
And similar ones will start to appear around him because if you can hold yourself together, similar ones will come to you. And you'll create a whole space that's invulnerable to these. The process, because why do something with you if you are all working exactly for the release and flow of these energies? If you are those very channels that are clear through which energy flows, but if you are that channel that's constricted, spasmed, and puts pressure on the system, most likely, they will be removed from the system.
And it's exactly about how to keep yourself in that center, in your soul, Yun, to really connect and feel what that's like.
This is specific.
And to be there, it's...
Specifically, yes, I showed that in the course we just finished recording.
And the practical energy work is also the first part, right?
For the general pile, yes. But their practical energy work is all-encompassing. It's the foundation, the base.
Friends, all the links will be in the description. If anyone is interested in everything we've talked about today with Anton, please feel free to check it out.
Yes, if you want, give me something. Just one thing so that it works. It's there. And don't forget, you need to save yourself. You need to maintain your own state If we take the position that we make everyone around us love, that's a disaster. If we train ourselves to love and simply maintain that state as a model to follow, that's what works. And as long as you are a model to follow, you gather around you those who are the same, with the same values. And this creates very powerful, very pure spaces at any point on the planet.
Well, first and foremost, we become a master for ourselves. We also shouldn't follow someone blindly. We develop ourselves, we turn to our own soul.
No, you shouldn't go blindly. But the guide should still be faster.
Of course, for learning, the focus is not outward, but on yourself. And to become a guide for yourself, that's because at first you can't, you go, you learn, but then you keep going.
That's not close to me. And you don't run around there kicking everyone to open their hearts quickly. Hold your heart and watch how you want the people around you. Call it awakening simply because they are transforming in your field. Let them transform. But you don't maintain your state. And then there can be all sorts of strange events.
You talk a lot about this on your channel. Yes, you can too. To those who are interested, I thank you for today.
Thank you for inviting me to chat. See you. I'm always happy to share knowledge. Thank you.
Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.